Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, brothers in arms, and welcome to another long-awaited episode of Into the Dojo, where we leave the politics at the door when it comes to martial arts. I'm your host, David Cobb, and today we have a fantastic guest who is going to be lined up today. Now, normally we believe that this guest does not need an intro, like all of our guests, but we're going to do it anyway because that's how this show works. All right. So our guest today is the founder and proprietor of Clubb Chimera Martial Arts, based in the UK. He is a pressure-tested martial arts instructor with 30 years plus of martial arts experience, and he is noted as possibly the #1 modern emerging expert mind in reality-based self-defense. He has taught extensively on various subjects such as self-protection, edge weapon awareness, as well as defense. And he is a published author and regular columnist in British martial arts magazines across the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, join me in welcoming our guest today, Master Jamie Clubb.
I'm delighted to be on the show. Thank you, David.
It's always a pleasure to be able to have an experienced martial artist to come in and just be able to give us an insight on the realities that are that deal with the martial arts that we practice, as well as the realities that we deal with out in the world when trying to apply these things. So again, thank you very much for being able to spend some time with us today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I usually tend to get a little nervous when speaking to martial masters such as yourself, because I kind of think to myself like, okay, I got to make sure that I ask the right questions, and I got to make sure that I keep everything engaging. But it's like it's always wonderful when you all come on, and you're always so welcoming, so open. It's really just wonderfully a joy.
Yeah. I don't consider myself definitely to be a master. I don't. Absolutely not. I'm a vagabond. I'm a nomadic martial artist. Yeah.
Oh.
And I'm on huge shoulders of people with vastly more experience than me for the stuff that I teach and deliver. I have to say that, both in the field and in the academia of martial arts as well. So yeah. So I love the introduction. But yeah, I feel I have to be a bit humble there.
No worries. Humility is one thing that we do thrive on here as well. And again, thank you very much for taking the time. So just diving in today's conversation, the first question that we usually ask is just one that helps the audience to be able to get to know you a little bit. Just tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and what introduced you to martial arts. And I see it's a very interesting background that you have, so please feel free to elaborate.
Okay, well, really, I grew up in a traveling circus community. My mother was a seventh generation performer, and I wanted to be an eighth generation performer at one point. My father ran away to join the circus. Actually, did the typical thing. Actually, ran away to join the circus, and so I grew up in that environment. Difficult to say. There is definitely one thing that led me to martial arts, but there probably are a lot of contributory factors that psychologists would be able to unpick on my journey to that point. But I don't think they're any different than any child. Growing up, you have different media influencing you, and you have different backgrounds. My personal growing up background is probably a little extraordinary, growing up in a traveling circus community. But I was acquainted with a lot of different people who had huge backgrounds in handling violence, managing violence. My uncle was a wild animal trainer, and as well as being known for knocking out a few people, he disarmed a gunman who tried to rob the show.
Oh, wow.
My grandfather's circus, there was in Ireland. They were touring in Ireland, actually, but we're a British circus family. But they were touring in Ireland, and the Irish people, wonderful circus supporters. The show was doing so well. It's so well that they were being watched by two guys who wanted to rob the place, and giving you an idea of how sort of trusting circus people generally are in the environment. They're very streetwise in some ways, but we have a very open community. There's so many there's so many prejudices that we see in real life, that in circus, I feel like, a lot of, I'm just speaking about my culture, because obviously I haven't been living on a traveling circus since I was 7 years old, but talking about my culture, I just feel we're so much ahead. There's so many things. It was always multicultural, always different religions, different people coexisting. Women were doing jobs that were typically you'd think of outside of the circus community wouldn't be allowed at the time, like decades we're talking about before. There's so many trailblazing things that go on. So again, a very open community, very, very good feeling of coexistence going on. So they kept their caravan door open, and these two robbers turned up and decided to raid it. And one had a sawn-off shotgun, the other had a pistol, went straight into the wagon. And my grandfather was sat there in his chair, as he normally would be. It was the pull-down day. The last day of the show was showing. So that's where the money would all, the full week's takings would have been there.
Oh, wow.
And but what they didn't take for account was that my uncle, as part of his tradition on pull-down day, he would go and have a cup of tea and one of my grandmother's then famous tea cakes. And he was sat on the sofa, and he saw the gunman come straight in. And just as the guy was sort of pulling down his balaclava, he just rushed straight there, punched him straight in the face, and took the gun straight off him. When to fire it, safety happened to be on at that point. He said freeze first of all, but the other guy pulled like the sawn-off shotgun behind him, and safety was on. They ran. A gunshot did go off as it happened. In fact, my grandmother had to go on her hands and knees and retrieve it for the police back, because you have no idea what it was like. It was in the 80s, but it made headline news. It made headline news in 1984. So my cousin's got a lot of bragging rights over their uncle there. But so kind of grew up in this kind of environment where this stuff happened. This is just they were used to being on the fringe of society. You're used to being constantly the outsider because you're always moving into a different environment. So even though we've got our own little bubble, if you like, of multi-ethnicities, multi-cultures, different religions, different beliefs, all coexisting, working together, men and women working alongside each other in the same jobs, getting the same roles, all this kind of thing going on. Outside of us, we're moving into other communities all the time, whether it's in other countries, different cities, different counties, different states. So all that kind of thing's going on. So, but we're always often exposed to that. So I'm around a lot of experienced people, but none of that. And that might have had some influence on me, because again, I look back very proudly a lot of it now, and also respectfully. But I didn't want to become a martial artist until I was about 13.
Yes, because go ahead.
Yeah. I know the only reason why I did that was because what it was, I was a comic book fan ever since I can go back. Since I was 4 years old, I used to love comic books. Absolutely loved comic books. I was a big comic book fan. Yeah, exactly. And so, and I never put two and two together that Batman was a martial artist back then. I mean, I knew he did martial arts. I knew James Bond did martial arts, but I never identified them as martial artists, if that makes any sense. It was just like one of many skills they did, So it didn't make me think, oh, if I do martial arts, I could be like Batman, that kind of thing, or I could be like James Bond. That didn't go in my head. But there was, you have a property which obviously is worldwide called G.I. Joe. We knew it as action. We knew it as Action Force.
Really?
Yeah. For a short period, it was. Yeah, they kind of like mixed. And again, that's another geekish sort of thing, But we kind of had Action Man, and then you had G.I. Joe, and they were like each other's sort of equivalents, but then they kind of converged. I don't know. There's much better people be able to tell me about the histories of all that. But for a brief period in the UK, they sold G.I. Joe as Action Force in the UK. So that was the comic we knew it as. So it was a lot of reprinted American material, but also stuff written by the UK-based Marvel Comics, when Marvel were running it for Hasbro. And anyway, and funny enough, it wasn't even my chosen comic really. It was again another one of my cousins, not the gun disarming, wild animal training uncle son, but the other side, my mother's sister, her son. We used to get him these Action Force comics on my way back from school. I used to like Transformers, and he liked Action Force, but I used to read them on the way back home. So obviously, because I'd read any comic book, right? And I'd read them, and of course, there's Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow, they were like immediately jumped out as my favorites. And I absolutely love them because they're probably the closest to a sort of a superhero, I suppose, in that comic.
Pretty much.
at the time. They're kind of like, a way of sort of like, the military. So I was, and I was loving the stories and really enjoying the background and hearing the history about it all. And, but I just thought of it again. It's just another character, another Batman character, another, happens to do martial arts. And then I overheard a school conversation. It was I was at school, and I know these kids, and they were chatting away, and one of them was going about, oh yeah, I know this guy, and he does ninjutsu. He's a ninja. And I was going,
always ninjas, man.
Yeah, no, they're all over the place. I know, and absolutely. I mean, this is, if you give you an idea of the time, we're talking, it's 89, 90. So this is right at the end of the ninja boom. Now, I live right in the sticks. I live in the sticks in England. Absolutely unaware of the ninja boom. No internet, obviously. This is 89, 90. So no kind of concept. Again, we have, barely, even to this day, there's the martial arts clubs are proper on the edge of the edge, if you know what I mean. You've got to go into the cities to get the big martial arts buzzing scene, you know what I mean? So I was hearing this conversation, and they weren't my friends, but I was in this conversation, getting really excited. This guy was going, "Yeah, this is a friend of mine, and he's a ninja. He practices ninjutsu and all the rest of it." And I was going, "What? These people are real?" So suddenly, my 13-year-old mind, going, "What?" And then somebody else is at the table, and he goes, and this other guy goes, he's like the knowledgeable kid, and there's always the knowledgeable kid, and he goes, yeah, because yeah, absolutely, the most powerful ninjas, of course, are the white ninjas. And I'm going, what? I'm listening to this kind of thing, going, what? I go, yeah, and because what he was talking about was White Phantom, the movie White Phantom, this really low budget 1987. Oh. All right in the middle of the ninja boom, right?
Name sounds kind of familiar, but kind of.
Yeah, exactly. So it's all, it's got its own mythology, all the rest of it. I mean, of course, I had to rent a copy of that as soon as I heard about this film. But he's like talking about it. So immediately, this conversation straight away begins this mixing of sort of, I know somebody who does a martial art that's a ninjutsu, it's ninja. Oh, right. Well, people actually do train in it. And then the next thing is someone else is talking, it's like using a film as a reference, like as if it's real. So it's amazing when you think about that prepubescent sort of mind where you've got one foot in childhood where there's fantasy, and then there's the other sort of like growing up. Do you know what I mean? It's like, and so that kind of happens. And it's very representative of the whole ninja boom and ninja mania issues, isn't there? Obviously, I mean, we know that's like for the subculture of martial arts, that's the one that has the most problems, should we say? I think it'd be fair to say. It certainly has the most problems. I mean, I know some very good historical researchers, it's often controversial historical researchers, people like Anthony Cummins, I like Stephen Turnbull's stuff, but that very much go on the factual research of it, essentially coming up with the view that ninjutsu died out. It actually did die out, and it isn't. Right. It isn't a martial art. It doesn't have its own combative system, but it has a system of espionage. It was like again, it's very far removed from obviously what mainstream and the rest of the world made up. I mean, incredibly far removed. It's like a different thing. But anyway, I didn't know all that. I'm just a guy living out in the, in the countryside, come from a circus, whatever. And then suddenly, oh God, this stuff is real. So, it's like, oh, that's it. I want to do ninjutsu. And of course, there's no ninja schools near me in Heathrop. We're in Shipping Norton, Oxfordshire. Just even heard of it. You know what I mean? That's just it. So, desperate to do. And that's the only style I want to do. My grandfather I remember my grandfather saying, well, why don't you go to the local judo club? Which I really wish I had done. I mean, when I was 9 years old, I'd done 5 lessons of judo, and it was, and I hadn't really taken to it. I mean, it interested me, but I hadn't caught the bug, so to speak. I'd done a 5, it was like a summer holiday sort of thing, Monday to Friday, do a judo course. Obviously looking back, I really wish I'd stuck with it, but I didn't. And so now I'm 13 years old, and now this exotic ninjutsu. So in many ways, I suppose in my mind, it was kind of like I was growing up thinking, this is the closest way I could be a superhero. Do you know what I mean? That's your kind of mind goes to it. So
I'm guilty of it too.
yeah, exactly. I think so many of us are. Absolutely. So this is just it. So it's weird, So I'm growing up in this environment where the realities of violence are nearby. There's plenty of people that can tell me about it. Plenty of people I've seen. I'm getting into a few fights myself. Things like that. So I'm not unaware of it as I'm being a teenager. But that doesn't necessarily, you can have this cognitive dissonance where the fantasy side of it can seem very real to you as well. I mean, when people say to you this idea that somebody who can be hugely, we often find that people who live in very high risk situations tend to be incredibly superstitious. So the same thing can happen with, I even used to find them on the circus, you'd find people who would have huge experience in dealing with violence and managing violence. But they'd be scared of somebody saying that they did kung fu or something like that, back in the day, because sometimes it would be like a fantasy. So it's the propaganda, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's the propaganda. And I found it worked for me. It often used to work. When I got into martial arts, there was, sometimes that could work for me. I mean, it doesn't work for you when it's not going to work for you when somebody calls your number, but you know what I mean? But,
I was going to say.
You better be ready to back that up. But a lot of the time, there's a lot of that backs, there was a certain time when that was working. So, we didn't find any local ninja schools, no local ninjutsu schools. So for a whole year, I was getting books on it. I was watching films. I was training myself, if you like what I mean. I was combining that with whatever stuff I was learning from people from the circus. We had an old rolled up piece of canvas that we used to hit. I used to do my pull-ups on a trapeze bar. So I was getting fit. I was hanging around with hand balances and stuff like that. And so, and boxers, we just put on a pair of gloves and, beat the hell out of each other, basically. And another time, so working our way out what I was trying to do. But I was kind of trying to train myself into doing ninjutsu the best I could think in my mind, until eventually I got that itch scratched because my mum took me 2 hours to a ninjutsu class that we found. I was totally disappointed.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, at the time, I wasn't. Okay, so I tend to think that some of the prequel Star Wars movies gets a lot of a hard time of it. But imagine that fan that goes to see the Phantom Menace after waiting for 20 years, and comes out of the film, and because they've invested so much, they're not going to say it's bad. They're going to come out and say, no, it was great. I really, really loved hearing about Galactic Train Federation stuff, and
you just go home and just
Jar Jar Binks is amazing, and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? So those kind of people, and then they, as the weeks go by, and as the weeks turn into months, they start looking back at that thing, and they start going, well, maybe it wasn't.
Maybe it wasn't as good.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was kind of me with the ninjutsu class. So I came out of it. Yeah, I love it. It's great. It's nothing like I expected it to be. And even though I'd got books on ninja, and I got all the great, you're not going to name names because again, no politics and the rest of it. But all the great frauds of the scene, shall we say? And there's plenty of them in that area of ninjutsu. There's plenty. There's a lot of. Ninjutsu is, as far as martial arts were concerned, I would say is problematic. Okay, and in many respects, because things I wouldn't really know. But at the same time, I'd got the book, so I wasn't just expecting people to be disappearing and doing acrobatics. And
right.
I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, but when I was there, I came out of there and having seen people and used to physicality, the circus culture, gives you that. I mean, we're used to seeing people who put their body to extreme, that sort of thing. So, and I was expecting to see something of that within the ninjutsu. In fact, I was expecting what we'd call reality based, if you
right.
So my itch was scratched. I then went, okay, but I kind of like martial arts, because at this stage I'd bought in order to find anything out about ninjutsu, I was buying books on martial arts, or people were getting them for me as gifts. They were going, I don't know what he likes. Okay, let's just get him a book on karate. Let's just get him for Christmas. Let's get him a book on, and I had quite a few of these coffee table books, beautifully photographed coffee table books that were collections of telling you about the martial arts. So I'd already sort of learned about history of martial art and all the different systems, and they all were interesting me, because of course once I'd read all my ninjutsu stuff, I was reading about the Chinese styles, I was reading about the Japanese, the Korean, I was finding out about all that. I'd always loved boxing, obviously, so I'd always loved a lot of the European systems. I'd always been a fan of seeing all the fencing and all that side of it. So it was and wrestling and all that. So I was that stuff was interesting. So I went, okay, let's go to the nearest club. And I went to the first club. I started off with a place called Cicado. Again, it was obscure enough for me. It was obscure enough for me because it was in the magazines. It had been mentioned. It was a spin-off. It turns out it's a system that has never got out of the Midlands of England. No,
really?
No, it hasn't. It exists in some form now. And I think his two brothers ran it. And one that I was training under the one. I'm not directly under him, but under the instructors of one of the brothers who no longer does it, to the best of my knowledge. And the other brothers kind of taken on. So I've kind of like, I got a black belt in a system that was that for all intents and purposes is extinct. But it's produced some. In many ways, in my own lifetime, I've seen that happen. That branch is, and I've seen, and the wonderful thing is I've seen a lot of the black belts that have come from them. They've gone on to do two good things. One of them does, I think it's urban martial arts up in Nottingham in this country. Another one did very well in Muay Thai, became a good Muay Thai crew. So there was some good backgrounds, and it was like a very rough and ready version of Taekwondo. That's the best way to describe it. Yeah. So it was a spin-off from an association called the UKTA. So there's ITF Taekwondo. It has its kind of national variations that sometimes splinter off. UK Taekwondo Association, they had a guy who was a fourth dan. He went off and him and his brother went off and they created what was Cicado, Way of the Body and Mind. And it was a very simplified version of. They made up their own patterns, and there was very little Korean terminology. There was just, I think we just counted to 4 and named a couple of and just named like a boxing stance, and that was it. And then obviously the bowing, and otherwise it was very. Right. Well, we're do box, but generally speaking, it was different. It was like kickboxing meets Taekwondo, because immediately we did our competitions, and then they used to start holding full contact kickboxing matches, which was, I suppose it's very similar to your PKA rules. No kicks below the waist and no sweeps. It was very there was no sweeps, and unless, except for certain matches. But it was very rough and ready. You know what I mean? I was, from the age of 14 to the age of 16, I was sparring with the adults because, the numbers weren't always there for the classes and stuff like that.
This is the best experience, though.
Oh, absolutely. And there's this wonderful family that took me under their wing. That the mother and the father were black belts, and the two sons were black belts, and I was the same age as the eldest son, and we all and they really took me under their wing and got me for my grades. But they trained the kickboxers as well, so I got a lot of insight into that as well. So I got a lot of experience of that very early on. Combine that with all the the thing with the circus and that. So I got a feel for full contact, definitely. But then when I switched to Taekwondo, it all kind of turned into reverse for me on that one, because all the local Cicada clubs had closed down. I just got my black belt 2 weeks after my local club closed down.
Oh wow! So did you train? You must have trained like outside of like the actual establishment.
Yeah, well, no. For 2 weeks, I was training on my own. For 2 weeks, so I was 2 weeks. I was training on my own because the guy. And it's just. I remember turning up to one of the classes for this guy. I mean, I had some good instructors. This wasn't one of them, sadly. The last guy I trained with there, I mean, he was all right as a person, but as a teacher, I remember turning up and being the only person who turned up for his class. And he went, seeing as you're the only guy here, we're not going to run a class. And, and the hall was hired, you know what I mean? And I decided that I'm never, ever going to do that. And I have had those moments in my life. And I made a decision that is never, ever going to happen. I'm never, if someone turns up and wants to, is going to invest their time with me, and that it's my job, it's my duty and responsibility to give them that time and to give them that moment. But and this was, I say, leading up to my black belt, and he closed his club down, and that was it. I was stuck, but luckily I got it, and luckily I passed. And it was quite strict with their pass and fails. I mean, there was 3 of us who went for our black belt, 2 of us got through, 1 of us didn't. And I got it, and I remember getting my black belt in this Smoky Joe joint. I mean, when you go in there, it was like one of these back in the days when smoking was allowed inside places in the UK. And I remember it, and just my mum was there watching me. It was just, she said it was a real dive, and I was there getting my black belt in this real, but it kind of like it was right. Do you know what I mean? If you get what I mean, I just felt it was right. It had its own sort of romance to it, if you like. Switch to Taekwondo couldn't have been more different. I went to Taekwondo thinking, well, this is the closest to what I've done now. And in my head, I thought, well, I'm going to do a martial arts act, because that's how it's going to get me back to my people, back to the circus, back to my culture. We're settled down. We're no longer touring. My parents are now running at that point, we're running we still are, well, my dad is, my mum's no longer with us, but they were running a zoo training animals for the film industry. That's what they were doing. That was the thing. So they were getting involved in the visual industries. And no longer circus. I always loved the circus. It was always what it was like. It was the culture I most closely identified with, the people that I always considered to be my people. But anyway, back to the point. So we were in the middle of nowhere, and as you know, and I went to Taekwondo, and the Taekwondo place was, and I'm not begrudging because I know some great people who do Taekwondo. I mean, I really do, and I think at its root, again, there's some important stuff. I love Alex Gillis's The Killing Art. It's like one of the most. It's definitely on the top 10 martial arts books everyone should read. I would think if you about martial arts, as far as martial arts books are concerned, it is fabulous. Just gives you a real warts and all sort of feel to it. But my experience going to this club was I didn't fit in really. I mean, I made some good friends there. Some people who were nice colleagues, should we say, there at the time. It's far enough away from my home, and me not driving at that point, because you don't get your driving license until you're 17 over here and all the rest of it. So exactly. Yeah. We don't get it until 17. I didn't get mine until I was 18, actually. But anyway, so it's kind of like relying on my mum. My mum was an incredibly busy woman. I mean, she was trying to run a business and manage my dad, which is its own business in its own right. And she was rearing animals. I mean, I grew up like Mowgli. We had always had different animals, different cubs. She was constantly looking after sick animals. This is what she just dedicated her life to do. And so with all that stuff going on all the time, it's amazing that she had time to take her son. 20 minutes up the road. 20 minutes up the road and having to sit in while I, train for an hour or up to 3 hours sometimes, depending on if I get into the other lessons. But yeah, I had to start from the beginning again. That's the first thing I was told, in Taekwondo. I went, okay, that's fine. I never had any problem with that. I didn't go in there with any expectation. But it was a time when they just changed their do box as well. So there was this, they changed to the V-neck. It had just, they'd just gone from like the crossover sort of, the one that karate inherited from judo, that one to the V-neck one, and it just felt corporate to me. If you imagine Cicada was all like, we were like the country bumpkin hillbilly sort of side of Taekwondo, if you know what I mean. And then this was like now you're with the suits, you know what I mean. It was that was the feel.
It's like that kind of countryside versus like the
industrial city. Do you know what I mean?
Right, industrial.
Exactly. I don't know. I suppose what would be the equivalent? It'd be, I don't know, somebody going turn up in their jalopy from I don't know, Kentucky or something in that, in New York, and in Manhattan. I don't know where is it? It's like you know what I mean, that kind of thing, and then turning up and expecting to be able to fit in with the corporate life, and that's what it felt like to me. And the first thing I was being told was like, you've got to pull your punches, you've got to pull your kicks, you've got to do that, this, and it was made to feel very. Yeah. I used to get, and my mum brought me up with a big sense of responsibility. So, there was a couple of I broke a guy's ribs there. I caught a few black eyes. I wasn't a bully. Let's just get this straight. What was happening? I didn't even know I'd done it. But what I'd found is that their stances were different. At least with Cicada, we used to have a higher guard because I think it was probably more connected to the boxing thing and getting people into the kickboxing. Whereas Taekwondo was like this much lower guard when they were going in, and it was also I had never done point sparring. They kicked that out of Cicada as well. There was no point sparring culture.
So it was continuous mostly.
Yeah, it was continuous, and then of course a lot of people went on to full contact, so it was kind of like that sort of thing. So in Taekwondo, I was coming in, and they wouldn't let you do anything but point sparring to begin with. The continuous part of it wasn't there, and that completely threw me. And what I started to notice, of course, was that people were running into me. And I still get this to this day. To be fair, when I've trained clients who've got backgrounds in Taekwondo, and I say no disrespect to them in any shape or form, but they tend to rush in with not a lot of head protection. And I've known some amazing Taekwondo people who disprove that rule, but I do see this. There is sometimes this behavior that you sometimes see from point sparring, and I believe you can see it. I don't want to talk too much about it because we've got limited time and we're only just in my background. Right. But how you could see a comparison between fencing and dueling. Okay, so if you look at sport fencing, and how in sport fencing, it's all about getting the point, right? And getting the point first, right? Everything's about getting that point first. So you could do a whole kamikaze dive at somebody, right? And as long as you're the point of your sword, your saber or your foil or your epee, as long as that makes contact and it's scored, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
matter what happens to you. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't
Right.
matter if you land flat on your face, as long as you get that point. It doesn't matter what your thing is. Now, if you compare that to footage what we have of duelists, because there is still footage out there that you can see with people dueling in the early part of the 20th century. In fact, I think the last official duel was fought in
Really?
1960. I'll send you the links. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to see those. That's pretty cool. I thought dueling died out like years
No, no,
ago.
no. I think the last official duel happened in the 1960s. The last official duel happened in the 1960s. Yep. No, no. There's some stuff from 1912 on film, pretty good quality footage as well.
Hmm.
And you see how duelists, and I didn't know this. I actually was told this by a HEMA guy who, when I was asking him lots of different questions about that, and
Mhm.
he made this same distinction when he was talking about some of the stuff that they were trying to recreate in the HEMA with the fencing and trying to turn it into the full contact stuff. And he said the problem with some of this is that it's starting to take on the attributes of the equipment you're using, because people always
Mhm.
use the
Right.
equipment that they train in, right? That's how rope-a-dope comes about.
Right.
Rope-a-dope from a strategic point of view in boxing works, but it doesn't necessarily lend itself to what you might call combative. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
it's taking
Combatives.
shots, but it's
Yeah.
learning how to use that. Back in the 80s, you could pull your glove on some of the gloves, in the point sparring, where, because they weren't scoring electronically or anything, where you could
Mhm.
pull your gloves just a little bit open, so a little bit further up your
Mm.
hand, so that you get a little bit of a range on your glove. And back in the day, you could do that and maybe go and tap your chest or something to make, and then go,
Right.
oh, I scored a point. You know what I mean? Do you know what I mean, like that? And so,
Oh.
yeah, so there's like often like little tricks that you see that people take on the form of what they do with their training. So anyway, back to the point
Interesting.
here. I found that this was happening in the point sparring, that people were,
Mhm.
often they were running into my shots. I mean, that's, I don't want to be, that doesn't sound like a sort of a bully's excuse, but it wasn't the case. I was going
Hmm.
there. I was having to start from the beginning. I was, but as soon as I was being told, know you broke this guy's ribs, and I was going, oh, I didn't know I did. He ran into my back kick. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like, it's like, and it tends to be like that. And said, I'm 17 years old. The guy was in his 20s who did it, and a couple of other people, there's a couple of people got black eyes, and the guy didn't like me from the start in many respects. I don't think that's pretty not fair to say he didn't like me. I think he was okay, but I think he was very wary of me from someone coming from another style. He was wary that I might be coming as intimidating, and talking to me now, I'm not an intimidating person. But as far as the dynamic of martial arts are concerned, that's what was going on here within that thing. So I got really, really self-conscious about this, and I'm really, really
Mhm.
worried about. And that kind of, I suppose, outside of it, I think that probably compounded some of the fantasy I was believing in as well at that point. For most of the time when I was in my secondary school, that's what you call your senior
Right. Right.
year, and that, I avoided fights.
Mhm.
Like the plague. I mean, but to the point where I take rubbish as well. You know what I mean? I take crap because
Mhm.
rather than get into trouble, I'd rather get in trouble, so I'd take it. And it was only until we go into what we call the sixth form, which is like when you're 17, 18 years old.
Mhm.
That's when I came out of myself, and I just went, well, actually 16, where I went, okay, this is me, and I do martial arts, and I love doing martial arts, and everything went better for me. Actually, my education went better. I made up for lost time, all the stuff that
Mhm.
I had problem like that, and I had no trouble, and I had no trouble at all from bullies. But of course, it made me then feel, I'm indestructible.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? It's okay. So that's a lot of teenagers believe they are, and that all that was being fed into me. So so essentially that was my initial path, shall we say?
I mean, it sounds very interesting. Well, first off, thank you for mentioning comic books and superheroes because that's what got me into martial arts as well. Me growing up, I
Hey.
was a very big fan of like just like I mean, I won't say I'm more of a comic person, but I grew up on like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and
Yeah,
like Kamen Rider, Mask Rider.
yeah,
And then of course, we had like, Blade and stuff growing up when the
yeah, yeah,
Marvel
yeah,
movies
yeah,
first started
yeah.
coming up. So it's like for me, I always had that, that when I growing up, I had that fantasy about like martial arts, like the mysticism, and then plus I
Yes,
was a fan of like Donnie Yen movies, Jet Li,
yeah,
Jackie
yeah,
Chan, Sammo
yeah.
Hung. So it was a really big like I had a really big kung fu influence, honestly. But that also played into me like learning more about like the Japanese arts like karate, judo, jujitsu, and ninjas, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I can really understand as to how the fantasy can pull you in there, but then it's like once you get to understand the realism,
Yes.
of martial arts, and what it's essential, going back to its essential uses and its history and such. It can be a little disappointing.
Yeah.
But I feel that that is something that is necessary, and that actually leads me
Yeah.
into one of the questions that I really wanted to work with or to hear your response on. Now, one of the things that I notice, especially in the martial arts world today, is when people hear the word martial arts, they tend to immediately think that martial arts automatically means combatives and real life self defense or something like that. And in recent years, especially with the advent of like social media and such like that, I've noticed that the terms have started to kind of separate in terms of like how they view and how people see one versus the other, like sport versus real self-defense. And I was wondering, like, in your experience, is there a difference between, or do you believe there's a difference between what we know as martial arts today and true self-defense?
Right. Okay. So yeah, semantics are one, aren't they? They want that catches out. Semantics is the big issue. I mean, I hate it when somebody says to me something like "define martial arts," because my view on that is
My apologies.
I have an incredibly inclusive attitude towards that. To
Mm,
me, I can go quite far because saying, well, when you start looking at what's a dictionary definition of martial arts, where does it come back from? So. Yeah, I'm very open on my view. I can't give a definitive answer on
mm,
necessarily what is martial arts. However, okay, so self-defense. Now I say semantics. Very, very quickly. I
mm.
use the term self-protection. Okay. So
Okay.
okay. Now, I don't use. I also use the term self-defense, but I use them. Okay. So when I say self-protection, it is a umbrella term. Peter Consterdine coined this distinction. So you've got self-protection, and within self-protection, you have your soft skills and your hard skills, right? So and that's self-protection teaching as a skill set, as an individual skill set. And within that, you have personal security, which is your soft
Mm,
skills. And I'd
right.
extend that definition to meaning everything, including post-fight. I'd say it's pre-fight, post-fight, and it should underline the hard skills as well. So it's something that
Mm,
goes all the way through. So it's in self-protection terms, the personal security part of it is by far the most important part. I've had people say anything from the most respected people who I've trained with and worked with, who've been out in the field and write about this kind of thing. They'll say none of them has said less than 90% of your training in self-protection should be soft skills, and
mm.
a good number of them will say closer to 95 to 98%. Peter Constantine himself says 98% is soft skills. If you get
Right,
the
right.
soft skills right, in theory, you shouldn't have to do the hard skills. The soft skills is the most important part. So the other part of self-protection, the hard skills, is self-defense. So
That's
self-defense
the
for me
combat
is when we're
aspect.
discussing the hard skills. And now the
Mm,
problem with the term self-defense is that it isn't a term. Okay, it isn't actually. I mean, as it isn't it isn't a style. It isn't a system. Sorry, of course it's a term, but it's not. It's not a system. It's not a style. Okay, it's a legally recognized term. It's a legally
mm,
recognized phrase. So you get involved in an altercation. Police turn up. Okay,
mm,
right. Okay, so what's happened here? If your defense is something like on the lines of, well, I was using karate at the time, or I was using
mm.
kickboxing, or I was using, Muay Thai, Screamer, whatever. Okay. They're going, that's very good, sir. I just want to know whether you hit him or not. Okay. It's kind of like that. It's just like, well, I was actually, as you'll notice, I was using the Tomaru branch. Make sure you've got that one down there. Exactly that particular branch. We're not listening to the Tomaru left side, not right side, guys. No, we don't want those ones there. Now, of this particular lineage, you mentioned the police officer going, looking at you.
I
Go,
don't
saying,
care
okay,
about all that. Did you hit him or did
yeah, I really don't care. Did you hit this guy or not? It's just it. Okay. So if you're saying there's nothing in certainly not in the UK law,
mm,
certainly not in England, Wales, and in Scottish exposure law that says anything about a martial art. That says anything about boxing or as when you're using it as the term. I use this. I use. A lot of people. It always cracks me up when someone says they used a martial art. It's like they got it in their pocket. It's not a thing, is it? It's not a tangible entity. It's just and most of the people struggle to define exactly what they mean by that
mm,
anyway. I mean, a term like karate is almost like saying athletics. They're so
mm.
varied and there's so many different sort of schools of it. But anyway, the point being, self-defense is a legal term. So if you go, I know I use boxing on him. Oh, right. Okay. I use karate on him. Did you hit him? It was self-defense. Right. Oh, right. Okay. Now I'm interested. And that's the thing. Okay. So what you're saying here, this is a self-defense situation. And self-defense is, and again, because if you think about all those other martial arts, they immediately become very exclusatory. You know, they all become very like their own thing. You say self-defense. Now that's a debate that we can all join in. You say self-defense, that can be somebody who has never thrown a punch in their life, has never thrown somebody in their life, has got zero interest in combative arts. Can hear that term? They can have an opinion on that. They can have a view on that. They can understand that. It's a legal term. So I always say that, yes, they're hard skills, but these are hard skills that you've got to be able to justify in front of 12 of your peers. So if you can say that, you know, that's why it's very important to say that with self-defense. Now, is that then different? So if we look at it in that context, is that different between martial arts? Can martial arts be self-defense? Yes, it can. Okay, can self-defense be martial arts? Well, I'd argue that a lot of civilian-based systems of martial arts began as self-defense systems. If you look at the early days of karate and if you look at the early days of and therefore taekwondo, because there's a direct lineage link. And again, if you look at the link from karate to some of the Chinese styles and Okinawa tea and stuff like that, so Okinawa indigenous arts, what were they being taught for? Well, generally speaking, they're being taught as a system of self-protection, self-defense. Yeah, self-defense, and with self-protection as well, because again, you can listen to, if you read, you know, a lot of the stuff on the, you know, Funakoshi and Mabuni and a lot of people in the karate styles, when they were at schools, when they were describing, they had a lot of information on soft skills as well, about how to avoid conflicts, how to how to de-escalate. They had their own little opinions on that kind of stuff. The stuff they loved doing, let's not kid ourselves, the stuff they liked doing was the physical stuff, but they made these strong points about avoiding fights and things like that. And that's so not avoiding, but also the elements, you know, connected to
trying to diffuse.
Diffuse and avoid and avert and all this kind of stuff, and you know, and the philosophical place for it. And I appreciate that sometimes politics is fed in there, particularly when you see that in both China and Japan. When you look at different governments coming in, different political pressures, they've shaped martial arts. You know, whether we like it or not, we don't like. Politics is a difficult thing, of course, in discussing the martial arts world, and I appreciate you like to kick out of your discussions, but politics definitely shape martial arts. There's no doubt about it. I mean, a lot of schools had to survive by going to the politics of the time. So what are you doing? What are you doing, Mr. Cho? Well, I'm teaching. I'm teaching systems of how to hurt people and that. All right, so what are you going to do? You're going to form militias? You're going to go take over our government? No. Actually, they're for improving people. They're to make people feel better about themselves. It's about, okay. This is the kind of sort of, dialogue that goes along that shaped and helped a lot of styles, develop, and philosophers get involved and things like that. There's a lot of stuff around with it. But so a lot of martial arts do start as self-protection systems or methods for self-defense. Not all, some of them at their absolute roots, they are probably combat sports, but they also become systems of self-defense. Boxing, after all, was called the noble art of self-defense. That was for a long time. That was its slogan throughout all the 19th century and into the 20th century. We even sometimes hear it now, the noble art of self-defense. That was just it. It was often, and prior to that, of course, you had a lot of the weapon arts were considered to be schools of self-defense. We had schools of self-defense across Europe, and they were teaching you how to use sword and dagger and things like that, because that was the methods of the time, right up, for the Renaissance era and prior to the medieval times. But so you kind of you do often find it at the root of it. What were they there for? So for me, if a system of self-protection is probably a system of civilian, it's not combatives, a system of civilian self-protection. That's what self-protection is. But for me, how I teach self-protection is I divide it up. I say I'm very service driven. So I nowadays I don't run a club. I run a club from 2004 to 2014. I taught kickboxing prior to that as a sort of for a very unscrupulous boss, for about 4.5 years. So went into the wilderness, came out, did my 10 years teaching my own club my own way, and was very, very, very unsuccessful. Okay. I was not a club runner. I was a club runner. So I was rubbish at running a club, rubbish at trying to, try to do it the best way, trying to run my way. So in the end, I thought, what I am is I'm a PT, I'm a personal trainer. That's what I like to do. I like to teach seminars, I teach courses, and I like to help other teachers. Other teachers have come to me. I've now done like a teacher consultation thing as well. Now, not to teach them how to run their business, that's for sure. But I can provide them with extra information and how to cross train and how to bring other elements in and stuff like that, which I enjoy doing. So from 2014 onwards, I just did that personal training. And what I thought I'd do is I thought, screw trying to teach a system, my system. I wrote out a whole syllabus, made it sort of my system. I didn't want to call it a system. I like to call it approach. We didn't have any techniques listed in there. It was just more like activity based. The idea was like, I could bring you to one of my gradings, and the idea would be that you could see my students, and rather than be looking at them and going, is his position particularly correct, or is her position particularly correct, you could transparently see that A, they could hit hard, B, they knew how to grapple and fight, C, that they had good self-awareness, they had good and good knowledge of basic safety principles when you talk to them. So it could be quite transparent when people come out and go, so yeah, whatever you're doing here is practical. I understand that. I understand how violence works, and so do these kids. I don't necessarily follow their system, but what I can say is transparently, all these adults, what they can do. So that was kind of my idea to do that. It's maybe it's a bit hippie-ish, I don't know, but maybe it's a bit circus-like, very vagabond-like. I don't know. I like to think being more punkish than hippish, to be honest. But anyway, yeah. So we came out. So 2014, I went to PT, and I went, okay, I'm going to be service driven. So I went, that's it. So I say to people now, what do you want? So rather than saying to them, they don't come to me and go, but a lot of them do actually come to me, I'll do a martial art. I go, well, what do you want from this martial art? What is your purpose here? And maybe I can see if I can provide that for you. And maybe I can't. So at the moment, occasionally I'll get someone going, oh, don't do something that's very traditional, it's very connected to, a certain culture, a certain heritage, a certain historical thing. I'm going, that's wonderful, that's great. I'm really supportive. I know some fantastic traditional martial arts teachers who I believe teach practical martial arts, but are traditionalists as well. I don't do that. So that's not a service I can provide for you. Maybe if I have somebody who is more health orientated, I'll say, yeah, okay, yeah, we can do stuff that's based on fitness and health, and understand that's objective, but we'll use martial arts to help do that with you.
As the base,
understand the byproduct of this is not that you're going to be very effective as a fighter, or you're going to be very effective in a self-protection situation. If someone comes to me and says, I want self-protection, I want self-defense, then it becomes this becomes a first aid course. I compare it to first aid. That's my approach. I say to people, right, when you learn first aid, everybody turns up that first aid course. I guarantee you that the majority of them don't want to be paramedics, don't want to be surgeons. They want to come and they want to learn life-saving skills. They want that basic civilian day-to-day thing that they can do to save someone they love, or somebody maybe, or just a stranger, or anybody in their life. So they have got those skills in the workplace, at home, out and about. Maybe they'll do a specific first aid course, which is important as well. Likewise, you should be able to do with self-protection. It should be very individualized, So I teach self-protection like that. But here's the thing: it's limited as well. Incredibly,
right.
It should be limited. Realistically, the average person who's going to come in there and their job is not to work security. Their job is not to be in the military, not to be in the forces, not to be in a place where or not even being in an environment where they're regularly going to see interpersonal violence. Just like that. Is it healthy for them to train every single day in some form of practical, form of fighting, that they're going to be doing that the whole time? And so to me, no, it's a 10-hour course with homework where you will come in, you will learn these basic skills that will be, I'd say the way I define whether a self-defense is any good, because I get people who come to me all the time, they say, is this martial art good for self-defense? And my view is like, well, okay, what do you mean? I said, so first of all, I go, right, okay, if this guy's telling you teaching their self-protection, or if this woman's telling you they're teaching you self-protection, are they teaching the soft skills? Okay, that's the first thing I want to know. So if they're actually saying this is stuff that's going to be effective for you in real life, are they actually showing you soft skills? Are they telling you about attitude? Are they teaching you about situational awareness? Are they teaching you how to deal with the aftermath of a situation? A lot of people lose their lives after a violent situation. They've survived the actual situation, but the black dog inside them, the depression that can follow, the fear of the reprisals, the legal side of it, all that kind of thing. That's what can kill them. You know what I mean? Those kind of things can kill them. So are they teaching all that side of stuff? Okay, when that stuff's cleared out of the way, I go, okay, yeah, but I want to, basically they're not asking that question. They're normally asking me, is this going to work? I'm doing a martial art and I really enjoy doing this martial art. And I want you to tell me, I want you to confirm for me that it's going to help me out if something kicks off and I get in a real fight. So I go, okay, right. Well, number one, does it teach preemption? Number two, is it proactive? And number three, is it pressure tested? And they're my three criteria for the hard skills. And the hard skills, they're the 3 Ps. That's what I do. Preemption, proactive, pressure tested, 3 Ps. If those 3 are there, then I'll say that, again, that's cool. Okay, as far as the hard skills are concerned, your club's doing the right thing, on that side of it. I'd say it's maybe not healthy to stay within that, for too long a period. Because again, when I get to people that do a 10-hour course with me on self-protection, I normally say to them, look, I'm fascinated with the topic. I find it really, really interesting. But my danger here is that if you keep coming to me week after week and we're working off the basis of what I've taught you here, we're going to do things that are impractical. We can't help ourselves because martial artists can't help themselves. That's why a self-protection system turns often into a martial art in the greatest sense of the word. That's when you start getting this other stuff coming in, because martial artists also start practicing with other martial artists, and you can't help it. You can't help it. You start responding to what they do, and so the art develops, and so the style develops, and you sometimes get something that's very, very beautiful, and you often do. But then that's the point when you have to say to yourself, well, that's the bigger picture. That's something else. Right. Okay, now that isn't the self-protection. So my view is like, as I say to my clients, I go, okay, what do you want to do now? I say, unless you've got an area that you're particularly concerned about, like edged weapon awareness or blunt weapon awareness stuff. Right. My advice here is not to continue the self-protection route. My advice here is now to pursue martial arts. Okay. And now we don't have to get wound up in all the whole, but in real life I do this, and in real life I do that, and all this kind of thing. We don't have to worry about that. We can go off now without those confinements, without those trappings. We can go then straight away to say, okay, what do you want to do? Okay, well, I wasn't very confident in my hands. Let's box. Let's do a boxing course. Let's do boxing. Let's get boxing. Why? Because boxing is, as far as many arts are concerned, it's the art that's invested the most in developing your punches. It's an art that excludes everything else to punching. There are other elements, but you know what I mean. It's all about punching, punching full contact, and every country does it. And so much money's piled into it, and your average boxing gym is not interested in getting numbers in that class. They're interested in developing better fighters in the ring. That's where the money comes from, the average boxing gym, which creates a unique dynamic that is separate to most martial arts classes. Right. Most martial arts classes are developed by, well, we need to get as many people as we can, or we need to get them through grade. Sometimes it's very retail orientated. We need to buy the equipment, we need to get the gradings. Boxing doesn't care about that. Boxing is about, okay, right, he's good in the ring, or she's good in the ring. Okay, right, that's great. Okay, well, we're going to get them into competitions. Okay, we want them to win. The more competitions they win, the more chances we're going to get people that can turn pro. When they turn pro, then we can make, that makes the money. So boxing is orientated towards developing better fighters in the ring. So that has its own thing. Footwork is phenomenal. It's, obviously, I think it's probably got, some of the most sophisticated footwork you can find in a combative sense, as far as boxing. Very much so. So you'll have that, yeah, absolutely. And boxers just know it, and just from my background, seeing so many good boxers. So boxing is great, and within boxing, isn't it? It's talk about diving deep. My favorite boxer of all time is Archie Moore, who I think is the martial artist. I love Archie Moore. Just phenomenal. Everything. I love it. When one of the few people as well that, I like to separate art from artists, but, so much of his stuff is a personality. And I hear about his daughter when she gets interviewed, and that fabulous person. Really, 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 for me, he's the martial artist boxer. So I love Archie Moore. But I love a lot of the old boxers and a lot of the other systems. I love the whole background, but also the development of the styles are great. The outboxers, the swarmers, the sluggers, the boxer punchers, Sugar Ray Robinson. Who's not interested in combat and can't love Sugar Ray Robinson? Do you know what I mean? It's like, obviously Muhammad Ali almost goes without saying, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
I love hearing about everyone's different favorites, because it's like, it really shows like different facets of of the person that I'm speaking with, or
Yeah.
just like, your personality. It's like it's very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I do things like learn from the fights from the services I actually deliver, where people actually just watch fights with me, and we go through an analysis of the fight and things like that, and we talk about the history, and that's that, because I find that interesting too. But anyway, here's the view. So you go off and do your boxing, you enjoy the boxing, and maybe you go, okay, I want to stay with boxing. It's not, and if people stay boxing too long, my view is like, well, go to a boxing coach, go to a boxing gym, because I teach boxing as a cross-training discipline. I'm not going to pretend you're going to get the best boxing in the world here from me.
Right. It's a
framework. Yeah, exactly. It's my attribute training. But so, okay, so let's say you go, okay, well, and this is an interesting journey for some people. So this line, so you see yourself and say, well, okay, well, maybe there's a line here. And the line is, maybe your line is, so what's your foundation system? Is it Chinese martial arts?
Oh yeah, it's Chinese Sanda and Wing Chun with
Sanda. Yeah, Sanda, brilliant. Yeah, no. That's one of the combat sports I haven't really done, and I really wish I had, and I really wanted to experience that. Fantastic. And Wing Chun, okay, cool. Yeah, I know a lot of great Wing Chun guys.
It's hit the mainstream a lot nowadays.
Yeah. So something to do with some guy came over from Hong Kong and made a few movies or something. And that, I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
I think his name was Ip Man. I think.
Definitely Ip Man. Yeah, exactly.
Portraying this really famous guy, Bruce Lee.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, so you've got this. Okay, so I see this great line. So let's say whatever your foundational system is, maybe your foundational system is Wing Chun. Then, okay, for example, Sanda's a great one to use actually for this. Sanda actually is a great one for this analogy. Okay, let's say it's Sanda. Okay, so let's say you're learning Sanda. Okay, and you're saying, okay, I want to invite cross training to our Sanda gym. Why? Because I want my students to, my fighters to have a broader experience here. So let's do isolated boxing training, and we're going to learn boxing not boxing from a Sanda perspective. We're going to learn boxing. Okay, we're going to learn boxing. That's what we're going to do that, because there's, as you know, how you box when you box and how you use boxing techniques in Sanda are very, very, very different. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, cool. So your view would like, okay, let's do that. So the view is then you go back to your line. Okay, if you like your base style or whatever it is you're doing. So maybe it's self-protection. Maybe it's Sanda. Okay, so if it's self-protection, the view is that, okay, right now we're going back to self-protection. We're looking at our preemptive strikes. Maybe using a palm strike as a preemptive strike, should we say? Okay, so now, how has training in boxing improved that straight palm strike? How has it now improved that hook? So rather than going into self-protection and saying, I'm going to weld on those techniques, it's another mistake I see with a lot of cross trainers do. They try to stitch on or weld on techniques. They try to go and they think, I remember seeing one club who taught his class boxing techniques throughout all the punching techniques of his system, just to teach people Western boxing techniques just because he thought they were the best. And I'm going, you're missing the point. It's not the boxing techniques that is going to help your students. It's immersing themselves in the boxing culture, is immerse himself in the culture of learning how to box with other boxers and learning that part of it all. Don't throw out your system. There's a reason why those strikes are in there. Go back to those strikes now and see how that cross-training experience has enhanced your base style. So with Sanda, that would be a classic example. You'd go straight back to Sanda and you go, okay, well, I've got to, I don't want to be trying to adapt this boxing to Sanda. I'm going to go back to my Sanda as I did my Sanda. But oh my God, suddenly my right cross is amazing. You know what I mean? Oh my God, suddenly my hook is like, it's tighter. Do you get what I'm saying? Is that yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the same thing with the self-protection. It's the same thing. You teach people ground fighting, they submission grappling, for example. You're not saying go into self-defense. Well, okay, all these submission grappling moves, what I expect you to be able to do, and passing guards got a direct relevance or something like that. No. What you've learned is how to move on the ground. What you've learned is how to not be scared of the ground. How you've learned is how to position yourself better and things like that. Wrestling, in many ways, one of the best things you can learn from wrestling. It's such a solid style. I say wrestling, freestyle, Greco-Roman, folk styles, whatever, collegiate. The best thing you can get from that is takedown defense. takedown defense. Never mind the
Mm.
throws. Never mind takedown defense and positioning. Teaching you'll now have a great base for stopping somebody from taking you
Right.
down. So in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, it might be a rugby player. It might be a football player over in the US.
Oh.
It might be. I mean, how many of those? Yeah, are going to take you down? Exactly. But if you've done some at least rudimentary training
And built those
in wrestling,
attributes.
you've got a
Right.
better chance of being able to sort of understand. And as I said, it's not the specific techniques; it's the familiarity, it's the tactile awareness that you get with grappling. That's not the literal techniques necessarily, but it's just now you're familiar. Wing Chun's a wonderful example of that. So you think about the Chi Sao, and then think about Greco-Roman wrestling and fighting for grips, and how could that lend to it? You know what I mean? How could that lend to it, especially as you turn it into a type of free flow sparring out? It actually break out of Chi Sao when you do that kind of thing. That tactile awareness. I've often thought, I've seen some people do that as well. And they've kind of like looked at Greco-Roman and some of the Wing Chun Chi Sao.
I mean, I've noticed that with a lot of like a lot of the blended schools that tend to use like Wing Chun concepts, they always tend to lead it into like jiu-jitsu. They always tend to lead it into some type of like wrestling or trying to like use it as a bridge.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's
sure.
interesting to do, considering Wing Chun deals a lot with bridging. So
yes. Yeah, exactly. So again, that's to me, and maybe some of it doesn't help, but again, that's all part of that understanding. It's all about, and that's often the thing. It's like teach someone doing MMA, for example, they've got to be. A lot of it's like going to university because you're going, well, okay, well, guess what? Things that you couldn't do in Muay Thai, for example, Muay Thai, you can't really have a bladed stance like you would have in boxing because you're going to get that front leg kick to pieces. Right, I mean, as soon as a Nakamura loves seeing a boxer when they come into that bladed stance, you can almost see them salivate, can't they, with that front leg? It's going to be like, okay,
so I'm going to get that liver shot.
This is all going to be about kicking that leg, or even a wrestler, if you like. So that's self-protection and martial arts. Yes, the two converge. Yes, the two can overlap. But essentially, I think self-protection should be taught within its own sort of restricted bubble, so to speak. You can always keep learning, you can always keep updating the information, but certainly the physical side of it must be kept limited, and you use the experiences from cross-training later on to enhance that. But it still needs to be something where you feel like when you've taught somebody who's got no training at all, no knowledge at all of any sort of experience of interpersonal violence, you feel like, okay, I've sent somebody back out into the world where they've got a better chance of avoiding or handling a violent situation. That's the reason why evasion skills are so important, and that all comes out of my children's self-protection stuff.
And that actually is something that I wanted to. You're actually kind of segueing into, and it's the biggest focus that I saw, especially when reading through your book. When parents aren't around, I want to make sure I get the title correct.
That's right.
One of the things that this book focuses on, which I feel that personally, in a lot of like say children's martial arts classes, maybe, or just when you're talking about self-defense as far as children, it's the aspect of you, like in your book, talking about how to cultivate the mindset of self-protection within children, which some people can feel is a little, I guess, let's say the modern parent will say it's unnecessary. Maybe you're kind of like taking the innocence away from the child, or you're making them paranoid about a world that is not as dangerous as one would think that it would have to be for martial arts or that type of readiness to be done. But I like the way that you talked about really cultivating that mindset, not even bringing in the physical aspect, as you noted earlier, but really just getting to the heart of how to cultivate that mindset. How would you say, I guess, is the best way to cultivate that type of self-protection, reality-based mindset in a young child without, scaring them or making them feel like they have to be head on a swivel kind of thing?
Well, I think the first thing there is to understand, again, with adults as well. I don't think I think a lot of there is a certain part of our culture that that doesn't really know the difference between being aware, what we would call being aware, and being paranoid or being hyper aware. This is kind of like, it's like situational awareness. So, walking down the high street locally to me, it gets really, really rural. It's very different to walking down the high street in Johannesburg. Do you know what I mean? Or walking down the high street in Baghdad, or walking down the high street in New York, or walking down the high street in Ontario, or walking down. Do you know what I mean? It's like they've all. I'd say all of those as examples. I would say each one of those warrants its own kind of level of accepted awareness.
Right?
Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, so for example, my cousins live in South Africa. I mean, I was told when I did some firearms training over there. I mean, bear in mind, we don't, what gun laws in this country, we don't, no one's allowed to have a handgun in this country at all. We're allowed to have a rifle. We're allowed to have, no, we didn't have it really in pistol schools and things like that. We can have shotgun licenses, rifle licenses
for home protection. Okay,
things like that, specific like that. But it's not it's not part of our self. It's not. We're not allowed under our self-defense law or anything like those sort of things. Okay, so you've got that culture. Go to the US, of course, and the right, to bear arms, etc., etc. Right. And it varies from state to state to a certain degree, but there's obviously that amendment that makes a big point about it, right? But how it's interpreted might vary state to state. However, when I went to South Africa, I was told another level where if you're going to pull a gun here, you've got to shoot it. If you're going to pull a gun here, this is what I was told. I said, if you feel that you need to pull that gun at that particular moment, you better prepare to shoot it. So why? I said, because the chances are that person's also got a gun and they're going to shoot you if you don't do that. So don't even think about it. So the warning shots don't exist over here. And any person I spoke to, any person I spoke to over there completely confirmed that story. It is a different level. It's a different level because again, you've got a different level where people would, it's like, but then you kind of go to places like, there's places in Canada and even around here where at one stage, people would leave their houses open, they'd leave their cars open without even thinking about it. Do you know what I mean? It's just, it wasn't even like, so, when people talk about awareness, you've got to understand it's got to suit the environment that you are going into. You can't go into a certain area with this, and the time of the day. I mean, Moteague, one of the great coaches who taught me, defines situational awareness as people, places, hazards, changes, all within context. And it's a simple thing. Again, you teach kids this. You go, this place is different at this particular time, and some places, what change? Something changes that environment, then we have to do this, then we have to do that. But I don't believe it's this scaring kids necessarily. Children are taught safety from a very early age. And dealing with predators, dealing with bullies, dealing with other, they face these threats of violence in their life in the same way as they might face the threat of drowning. Well, that's why we take them to swimming lessons. You know what I mean? I mean, I know kids who are landlocked. Never really get out of one part of the place, and they really don't go near. And the chances of them drowning are probably so remote. Do you know what I mean? But yet, swimming is taught as a big part of it, and rightly so. It should be. It's the same thing. So we teach children all the time to be safe. Don't stick your fingers in that socket. Don't do this. Don't all this kind of stuff. All this kind of stuff. So that should all feed into the environment. Guess what? Most people are pretty good, okay, but there are people who aren't going to be so good. And here's the other thing. We send children into an environment where the people in that environment will do things to them that if they were adults in like a workplace environment, okay, they'd be down the cop shop before lunchtime. Do you know what I mean? Children right into their teeth, right up into their adult. I mean, obviously, technically, but biologically speaking, we're all adolescents into our early 20s, from a biological point of view, but yeah, come on, we know what people gets on and happens in colleges and universities, know how people act and behave and things like that, and people are very tactile, and kids are very tactile with each other all the time. Kids face, your average child's going to have a 50% chance at least, and I'm just pulling that arbitrarily out of the sky, but I say a very, very good chance that they're going to encounter some form of interpersonal violence in that day at school, that we're dropping them off there in the care of other adults, knowing that fact. Full abandon. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. Little Johnny's going to get in a fight with little Benny, and and little Jessica's going to end up having her hair pulled by I know
Susie or whomever.
Susie or whatever like that. It's going to happen, and kids are going to team up against each other, and and some kids are going to have different levels of controlling their anger and stuff. And they're going to lash out, and you can bring up your kid to be as great as they can be, but then they're going to encounter other people as well in their life, and there are going to be plenty of people who not understand their boundaries. And again, because this all kind of like feeds into and we've always told kids, things that you could say are scary. I mean, I use a lot of folk tales and fairy tales and stuff like that as essay points, for me, because I just find them useful, icons and mythology. And so I love mythology and all that stuff anyway, and hence the comic book connection. If you know,
it does help to get the point across when you find that medium where they can, pass it through and really make sense of it in their mind.
That's what we've been doing, haven't we? Yeah. Sorry, I didn't interrupt there, Dave.
No, it's okay.
But that's what we've always been doing, though, haven't we? We've always been telling our kids these stories that are about heroes and heroines, and that
Disney.
You try and instill in them courage and good, doing the right thing, and setting their moral compass, and also how you behave and how you treat people, but also who the bad people are in life. Who the bad people are like. They've always been present. And they're in children's media at a fairly early stage. They're going to come in some and they always have been, and they always will be in some shape or form, no matter how much we want to sanitize and stuff like that. So I often find that when people say, "Oh, you're going to scare the kids," or and I'm going, any more than you saying don't step out on the road, any more than you saying put your seatbelt on. Why put my seatbelt on? Well, because how do you explain that one? How do you explain a fatal car accident to a child? I'm not scaring my kids. I'm not scaring my kids. Okay. Put the seatbelt on. Why? Okay. So because we could be an accident. What does that mean?
You could be safe.
Yeah. Well, you could. Yeah. Well, you could be safe. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. Could you be safe? Okay. Yeah. It's probably a better way to describe it. But somewhere, some kids I've known, and that are going to go.
Why?
The kid I was, it's going to be. What do you mean be safe? Safe from what? What do I know? What am I safe from? What am I safe from? What am I safe from? Well, okay, we could have a car accident. What's that? Okay, what do you mean a car accident? Well, what could happen in a car accident? I've been in a bumper car. There was no big deal. I've been around in my little drivey car, back at school and stuff like that, and we banged into each other. What's the problem with that? No. This one could really hurt you. What do you mean hurt? So this kind of thing. So kids are asking, and you're telling them about real dangers. And sometimes you'll go into shortcuts as well, very, very quickly to shortcuts. Right. Because you're going to go say, you could get killed. This could be really. Because they go, I don't really see how this is serious. Why? Because I haven't experienced this. I don't know anybody who's had this. Try this. Okay, right. I'm going to tell you, this is really, really serious. If you touch that pylon, if you don't put that seatbelt on, something, or whatever like that. If you cross that road, if you kind of thing. So it's all part of that education, as far as I'm concerned. Right. And I think the biggest problems along with that is a lot of adults don't want to know about that part. We have a real bad relationship with trying to, because we don't, especially because we live in very much more comfortable environments than a lot of the people who started the systems. So chances are we're not going to encounter interpersonal violence on a daily basis.
There's no bandits running around the street trying to run you on the way to the store as often as it probably would have been.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of time we're far removed from it, in our mindset. So because we're far removed from it, and we're not, we're only seeing it on the news. We're not necessarily. We just go, but because of that, we're going, okay. Well, I don't want to scare my kids. I don't want to scare myself. I don't want to scare like that. And that's why. And that's why you get often like this easy fix solutions, which is often the problem with this. And martial arts clubs are just as bad at doing this as non-martial artists, and things like stranger danger.
Getting that.
Yeah. So things like stranger danger, which is a gimmick. I don't think it's helpful. In fact, I think it can be potentially very damaging to teach children stranger danger. Because people haven't really thought about what they're saying when they say they teach a child stranger danger.
So do you think that I guess that attempt at trying to make it more relatable, or I guess like as you said, you're both like more enjoyable or finding fun ways, do you think that can take away from the realism, or do you feel that a decent enough balance of that fun and reality helps to make it easier to digest?
Well, maybe, yeah. I mean, again, I think that it's also how you frame the games and how you it's how you teach, isn't it? It's like and how you listen. To the. I mean, Listen to me. I'm on transmit at the moment, David. You know, so I mean, I'm too much
Right.
transmit. I'm actually really want to talk to you about Sanda.
Hey, I mean, it's
Yeah.
my
So,
I consider it my my parent art. It's the one that I really managed to get into when I got into college. That really helped frame a lot of my philosophies on martial
yeah.
arts, and it's what actually introduced me to Wing Chun.
Mm.
And my coach also cross trained like Okinawan karate
Yeah.
into the classes. So it was
Oh,
that
excellent.
cross training aspect is something that really interested me in my journey coming up as well.
Yeah, yeah, that's great that you had a teacher that did that, because I think there's a thing, you know, there's a word that I use, maybe it's not correct, but I use a term, I call it stylism, you know, where people have this kind of like, you know, like my style's best and, you know, whatever.
Oh yeah,
So that,
the usual argument.
yeah, the usual argument that we're for, like, you know, and again, they talk about these things like as if it's an entity, as if it's something physical, and you're going, you know, it's just a word we're using to describe
It,
the
right?
disciplines that we're doing at that time, and it's, you know, whatever. But anyway, back to the, you know, as I said, so, you know, I don't mean to be on transmit, but I do listen to my students. My students have taught me so much. The children who I've taught over the time have taught me so much from the stuff that I've trained, the activities I've put together for them. And so, as you say, making it fun, absolutely. Get the games are great. That's a great way for children to learn anyway. But make the games relevant. And when you make the games relevant, then make the games be teaching points. So what do kids like? You know, what are one of the most popular improvised games that kids do? Chase games, right? You know, chasing games is one of the things that we
like
do.
Hide and seek, kind of.
It's all of those. All right, hide and seek. We had a thing called stick in the mud, where you tag someone and they stay still. It's very maybe.
I think we call that's freeze tag.
Yeah, okay. So where you tag somebody and you stay still, and then somebody else has to tag you to release you, that kind of thing. You've got base tag. We used to call it stuck in the mud over here. Yeah, exactly. And there's another one. There's variations where you have to go on between the legs and stuff like that, and you crawl under the legs in order to get out. Yeah. Well, again, you could turn that straight away into a martial arts conditioning exercise, couldn't you? Because people do it for double leg takedowns and stuff. You know, you shoot. But anyway. You can use these kind of chasing games in all various different forms. We have one called sardines as well, and not the ones that I necessarily teach. But okay, if we took the very basic premise of tag or TIG, okay, sometimes we call it TIG, sometimes called tag. Okay, where you've got essentially, and we have one called build up, what you might call build up tag. Okay, where essentially one person is it. One person is the person who tags everybody. Okay. When you get tagged by that person, you join their team.
Oh, okay. We've done that. Yeah, I forgot what it was called, but we played that as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I use that as the first physical exercise, you know, outside of warming up for the kids. But even the warming up stuff I make, when I make kids warm up, I make them walk around the room, look at their surroundings, look at how their posture is, how they walk, build up their build up their kind of the attitude, you know, to what's going on there, what's around you, where are the exit points, and then I start gradually getting them to move towards exits, understanding where the exits are, asking them where the exits are, asking them what is behind the exits, is that an exit? No, it's a cupboard. Is that an exit? No, it goes down a call. Where does that exit lead? Oh, that leads to the car park, or that one leads to that part. So just that start begins as the warm up. So before you're even the muscles are even warm, they're doing this, so they're walking around.
Up the mind,
make them, as you make them walk around, then you start making them do things that are directly relevant. It's time management, isn't it? It's like as I say, martial arts classes, your standard martial arts classes begins with everybody jogging around and then doing some
jumping jacks, calisthenics,
and then calisthenics and all the rest of it, all that kind of thing. I often wonder, if I went to a running club, do they warm up with martial arts? The relevance. You straight away like that. For me, it's like, if I'm doing a boxing class, or a kickboxing class, they, rather than running, they're doing footwork. How is one worse than how is one more strenuous than the other? They're doing footwork. They're using cones. They're using agility ladders, to develop basic movements. And even if stuff is a bit kind of obscure, like I don't know, icky shuffles, for example, when you're going in and out the agility ladders, that kind of thing. At least that's teaching lateral movement. At least that's teaching, at least skipping is teaching, keeping your feet lighter, keeping your, as well as obviously all the cardio benefits and stuff like that. It's like in boxing, So there are, certain things and this is the important thing. So even when I'm teaching self-protection, I'm teaching realistic self-protection for children. That comes back across that. I'm not going to get them to do any exercises that doesn't have any direct relevance to what they're going to learn. So by the time they're warming up, they're walking around, they're keeping their heads up to begin with, to look around where their exits, and I'm going to start calling exit. When they go to the exit, they're going to go to real exits, not to, this is the safe zone. They go to actual real exits. And then I'll make them do some agility drills, but only because they're learning evasion. Because one of the most important things you can teach a kid on a hard skills perspective from self-defense is evasion. And the chase games that they're actually learning can be really, really good teaching skills. Because they're learning to avoid. And one advantage a child might have over an adult is their size. That gives them more agility, more things to move around. Get them to do that. Get them to, obviously, and engage adult instructors, engage parents. The more the parents are invested in this and not dropping them off as a crash, treating it as a crash. We don't want, the more the parents are invested, the more chances these lessons are going to be taught back at home. So once they know what's going on, and this then becomes a behavior. So
interesting.
So I kind of warm up all that part of it, and then we do the chase game. So build-up TIG's a great one. But then after the build-up TIG, I then start asking the question, well, what did we learn? Run away. Okay, right, okay. What did we learn? Okay. Exactly. But not even on that, even on the very basic levels, things like, okay, so the person who was it, who did you choose? Well, I chose that person. Okay, why? Because they're small. Or that person because they're slow. Because that person because they're whatever. And then it's a safe place. We're all going to say, look, everybody, we need to be honest about what our strengths and weaknesses are going to be. And just because you're small doesn't mean that you don't have other advantages.
You can't do anything, right?
I'm going to show you that you have, etc. But let's be realistic about what's happening here. This person told exactly. It's why they picked you. That's why they picked you. So let's find a way to work this. Okay, things like that. So then you start building on those games. Let's make it a little bit more relevant. Okay, so now we're going to have a game where the people are actually the other kids are actually going to grab you. They're actually going to grab you, and you've got 5 seconds to get them off you in order to get out of it. Otherwise, you're out.
Interesting. So it's kind of like building on the psychology of the bully in a sense too.
Oh, absolutely. Well, here's the thing, right? So when we teach martial arts, most of the time we're looking at, so from a combat sports perspective, we're looking at athletes and their strategies, right? We often look back at the strategies of other athletes and we learn sports psychology, right? So when you're doing self-protection, shouldn't you be doing criminal psychology? Sports psychology feeds over into, the best way to learn how to defeat anything is to understand how it thinks. Right. So when kids start, so I get the kids together and I say, right, okay, well, you 4, you're going to be the predators, okay? And we all know you're the predators because you're wearing head guards, for example, face guards. So, okay, and your job is to grab all of these kids, and the other kids, your job is to get them away, okay? But what I'm going to do is that for the first couple of minutes, I get the guys together when they've got the head guards on, they go, okay, right, this is the deal. First 2 minutes, you're going to do nothing, okay? You're just going to walk amongst these kids, okay? The kids are not allowed to leave here, okay? I want you to mingle with the kids. I want you to talk to them. I want you to befriend them. I want you to talk to them and stuff like that and see how you work like that.
Interesting.
All right, okay. So the kids then start going, okay, and we play a few games of this. So the first few times, so the kids start understanding very, very quickly, because when it's 2 minutes, it's a minute, okay, they're all like wary and be scared of them. Gets 2 minutes, starts getting comfortable. A minute of being wary. Because how quickly, when you bring something dangerous into an environment and then that dangerous thing doesn't do anything, how long before that starts becoming normalized, and how soon does that become like that? Which is exactly how bullies and predators can work.
Right.
How they can suddenly, I thought you were my friend, but that kind of thing. But then suddenly it happens. So understanding that thing, and then of course we talk. Everyone talks back. Why did you pick on that person? It's because it's what worked for you. Most importantly, what worked for you? This worked for me. That worked for me. Then we bring in defeating bystander, getting allies. So that's you can involve parents or much older kids. Put them to the side. You can break this up. So when something happens, you can go out there and you can stop this person getting hold of this person for 5 seconds. You can break it up. Your word is law. But here's the deal, though. You can only do that if one of those kids who's being attacked, inverted commas, obviously.
Right. In essence, in the broad sense.
Yeah, exactly. So, they've got to lock eyes with you and tell you what to do. That's it. They've got to do that. They've got to say, stop him, stop her. he's grabbed me, help me now. Like not just help up in the air, help like that. They've got to look at you and if they do that, you can get there, and if you get there in time, you can break it up. That's the deal.
Right.
Defeat bystander effect, and get that thing. So the kids now are learning that. The other thing the kids start doing is going to say, so I didn't say you couldn't team up, did I? So they start going, oh yeah. So they start hanging out in groups together. They start forming groups together. Man, let's keep away from these guys in the head guards. And people go, yeah, but in real life, somebody with a head guard is not going to attack you. It's obvious. But but in real life,
it'll make it easier to see.
Yeah, exactly. But in real life, the warning signals are given off all the time. Gavin de Becker is brilliant at explaining that. The Gift of Fear. Right. What a fantastic book in terms of telling you, actually, most of the time, we know who the predators are. We know who the bad guys are. It's just our social conditioning that's stopping us from acting upon that. We go into denial, don't we? We go into a kind of, okay, I'm sure it'll be okay. I'm sure it'll be okay. How often have we heard a situation where somebody has been attacked, and you listen to their whole story, and you can see at so many different points when they could have done something, but all they've been in is like going, I just was like pretending it wasn't happening, or pretending it wasn't going to happen. Right. So we have the show called Crime Watch over here, and you get all these reenactments of these crimes, so they can catch criminals.
The true crime show.
And, yeah, absolutely, exactly. And it's a general call out to the general public. They'll see a reenactment, and there'll be a series of them. And you sometimes will hear these stories, and this person will go, okay, so I got out of the taxi on my own at night in the neighborhood. I go, okay, that's the first time. And I saw this guy across the road, and I'm sure he was following me. So I walked down this alleyway, and I'm listening to this whole story about this person. They've left the crowd, even though they know they're being followed, going down a really, really small area, and so eventually they get cornered, and eventually the assault happens, or whatever it is, the mugging, right. The sexual assault, whatever it is that happens. And you listen to the story and you think, oh my God, there's so many different points this could have happened. But of course, the mental part of it's like, I can't believe this is happening to me, right? So, so again, it's all about acting, and that's why attitude is so important. But yeah, the games, they can be fun. On the surface stuff, they can be fun, but it's up to us to turn that into something. We can look at that in martial arts. You can look at that in martial arts. When you throw a punch, how many clubs teach someone punching, and they're punching the air, and that punch has no meaning behind it. It has no essence. They don't know what that punch is going to. They're just making a fist, and they're just thrusting it forward, and that's all they're doing. It might as well be a boxercise lesson, because it's just it's got no purpose, substance, and that's not dissing boxercise. At least they're honest about what they're doing, exactly. So, that kind of is my view. So it's like, we'll play the games, but the games are all going to be relevant, and the games are all going to require some thought, and they're all going to be requiring ways for you to improve upon the games so that you become better at those skills. So all that stuff is all done, but even before we start teaching people into striking and things like that. So evasion is taught very early on. Yeah,
and I think that the benefit of playing those types of games is they not only play in martial arts, but that's emergency prevention as well, because you were talking about having them walk around the room, get used to the room, look at the exits, figure out where the cabinets and the cupboards and such are. In a situation where, say, the building is on fire or some type of serious emergency like that, the children will automatically know where the exits are. They know where the safe zone is, as you said. So it really plays into that idea of understanding your environment, understanding self-defense from that pragmatic, realistic perspective. It's not just an assault that could happen. It could be the building is collapsing. Okay, which exit do we go through?
That's a wonderful point, David, because again, I am very aware also with people when they some teachers who've said to me, some really, really good critics in the martial arts world who've said things where people become so obsessed with the self-defense side of things that they start neglecting things that are more likely going to kill them. Do you know what I mean? It's like, how many people have you seen who get obsessed on the self-defense part of it, and you're looking at them and you're going, your health's really bad. When's the last time you got checked? When's the last time you went to do that? So, a heart attack's going to finish you far faster than anybody. Exactly. You're going, come on, man. Diabetes. Exactly. It's going to be
just understand, you can't train and then go and eat like a bag of Peeps or something like that and expect it to turn out well for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the same thing, isn't it? It's like the same issue in terms of like the other safeties in life. Learning basic safety rules. How many,
Mm,
how many. Back to the seatbelt situation. I mean, it's not such a big issue now, but I definitely remember a time where a lot of practical martial artists, wouldn't bother with a seatbelt in the car. You know what I mean? Something like that. I wouldn't bother with, there's like this. There's so many, or would put themselves unnecessarily in danger. They'd go to places that had bad reputation. Or get drunk or something like that. And put themselves again in a bad situation in an environment to that. And you're going, what? You're teaching self-protection, but you're already creating all these other problems for you. So I think sometimes the awareness and situational awareness is really important, but I do think a good portion of martial artists and self-protection people, just like all of us, needs a good dose of self-awareness too, as well. So it just made me think of that when you're talking about how these extra skills would come, with children knowing where the fire exits are, knowing where, knowing basic. And again, this is why I put in my book about first aid, why I don't have a first aid chapter. I'm not a first aid teacher, but I say, learn first aid. These are things that you can do. Go off and learn first aid. Why? Because what's the point in a situation? You've survived the situation, and now you're going to suffer more because you haven't done good first aid.
Right, because you don't know how to heal your arm or something.
Yeah, exactly. Or you could have hurt somebody. Or, again, it could be a situation you could have actually hurt somebody, and you might be able to do something about that to help them afterwards. Things, there are different types of there's a lot more to it. So, yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's for me, that is something that needs to be, I guess, included in a lot more martial arts classes. Just the idea of pushing the CPR classes, pushing the first aid classes as a part of the self-defense aspect. Because again, like you said, a lot of people, when they think of self-defense or self-protection, they think of just the combative aspect, throwing your hands and being able to throw somebody or something like that. They don't think of self-defense as somebody during class, maybe they pass out because they have a condition that we didn't know about. And being able to know CPR could help in this situation.
Absolutely.
So I feel that definitely feeds into really the real aspect of being able to protect oneself and somebody that you're working with as well.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think it's, again, a good sense of responsibility as well. Which is, again, it's important. I mean, to me, that kind of leads into why I made the decision about teaching a moral compass.
Right.
Okay, so morality is subjective. I understand that. So, but my view is, when I'm teaching someone self-protection, and again, coming this across to kids, is to say, I'm not going to impose my morals on you. I'm not going to follow, I've got a different upbringing. I've got a different environment to you have, and you've got a different perspective. And who's to say mine is better than yours or whatever else? So I'm not going to do that. But my view is to say to them, right, okay, what is worth fighting for? So when it actually gets the physical part of it,
that's good.
What actually is worth fighting for? Tell yourself a story where you've got a worst case situation. And this came about in many ways because my daughter, we were, I was reading bedtime stories, and, so Dad, someone pulls a knife out on you, and wants your money. Okay, this is crucial to the question. Someone pulls a knife out. And it wasn't the first time I've been asked this, but it was the first time I came back with this answer. Just because I've really thought about it. Again, to be honest, my daughter, that's why I dedicated my book to my daughter, because it made me, there's so much about her that made me think about, how am I going to teach this in an honest way? How am I going to teach a self-protection class to kids that's not just a dojo filler? It's not just a way just to get kids as another activity for kids to do. It's not that, if I'm going to actually teach children self-protection, I'm going to teach them something that I could teach my daughter and feel confident
that she'll be able to use it.
Helpful for her. Yeah, exactly. I mean, honestly, it is. But then a lot of my children's teaching instructs my adult teaching as well. The lessons, do that. And honestly, some of those chase games that you teach as really fun activities for kids become bloodbaths with adults sometimes. You know what I mean? it's like, oh, you're looking at going, oh my God, this is like, this is, some of those things you see over in Russia when they have the big MMA team fights in the middle of the woods. Sometimes it starts looking like that. and you're going, oh, this is
You're
really
like, okay, this is a little.
Okay, everyone, stop. It's like, particularly because there's a definite distinctive difference between physical violence.
Right.
There's asymmetrical violence and there's symmetrical violence, right? So symmetrical violence is consensual violence. That's one-on-one. That's one-on-one. That's what I call consensual violence. One-on-one. It's anything from, I don't like to say, I do use the term match fight because that's what Geoff Thompson.
Yes, I saw that a lot in the book too.
Yeah. So Geoff Thompson uses the term match fight. But to me, if I say consensual violence and if I say symmetrical violence, okay, what I'm talking about, it's two people who've agreed to fight. Simple as that. So it's a duel. It's in days gone by, it would be a trial by combat. It's one-on-one or one gang against another or whatever, or one army against another or whatever you want to do. But that's consensual violence. And it tends to have its own dynamic, particularly in a one-on-one fight, has got its own dynamic because you circle each other, you create distances, the use of guards becomes much more relevant, etc., etc. This is what happens in a lot of consensual violence. Everything from people using weapons to unarmed, right? Okay, so asymmetrical is where one person wants to inflict violence and the other person doesn't want it, doesn't want it, and it provides a totally different dynamic because also our defense against that's different. Our defense is not like our defense in a stand up sparring might be jab cross hook, okay. Jab, cross, hook, move out. Jab, cross, hook, bob and weave. When it could be any number of things like that. It could be like that. It's like it's to and fro. There's a to and fro dynamic because we need that to and fro dynamic.
Turn, not turn based, but yeah.
But it's there, isn't it? I mean, I'd say my hero Archie Moore. That's what I love the way the expert at setting traps, drawing. He wanted you to punch. He wanted you to work like, look at, right back to the days of fighters like Max Schmeling and other ones, and Jack Johnson, the great Jack Johnson, the legend. Again, I love the way that he would encourage people so he could counterpunch. He'd get people to come in and work like that. Muhammad Ali, counterpunching. So again, it's my turn. You don't do that in self-protection. Self-defense, physical part of self-defense. Not only, this is why you've got the preemption part of it, most importantly, but proactive also for me translates to using forward pressure. So it's my turn. There's no turns. It's like you overwhelm. It's like my turn. I get out of here. You know what I mean? It's that kind of thing.
Right.
So okay. So there's that sort of dynamic. So bring back to the story. Okay. So we're bedtime, and my daughter's there going. Okay, totally different sort of thing, really. But my daughter's there going to talk about moral compasses. She's there saying, right, okay, so Dad, guy comes out with a knife, wants your wallet, okay, wants your money, what do you do? And I say, I give it to him.
Give him the wallet, right?
Massive, great big explosion, over the top of her head. I could just see that. Daddy's no longer the hero.
I mean, that happens a lot more when people ask any martial artist, I feel, about what are you gonna do if something has happened and you're like, just walk away or just run or give him your wallet.
Put it this way, if it was good enough for Ricky Hatton, and recently if it was good enough for AJ to do exactly that, to hand over their expensive watch to somebody who's putting a weapon on them, it's good enough for those guys, world champion boxers. It's good enough for me. You know what I mean? So if someone's bringing a weapon out of that, I so you could say, okay, so well, and she's like, and of course the look on her face is like really dismay. Well, do you need to understand what's going on here? Why would I say that? It's like, because I didn't want it to, so I said, okay, right, well, let's look at it this way. Okay, there's a couple of stories here. They both end the same way. Okay, and they're not happy stories. Okay, so we talk about telling stories to teach your kids stuff. Okay, probably scarred my daughter for life. But anyway, so the story is, okay, you're visiting Daddy in hospital. Okay, he's got tubes all sticking out of him. Okay, things aren't looking good. Okay, he might not live. Okay, or she knows about death. He might not live, or when he lives the rest of his life, he might have to be on a machine. He might have to be, he won't be able to move around like he used to. He could be in a wheelchair. It could be any number of things. Right. Okay, and you're visiting me, but I can talk. I can talk to you. Okay, and you ask what happened, and I say to you, this guy wanted my wallet, wanted my money, but it's okay because Daddy fought him. Are you proud of me? Are you proud of your father for fighting for that money? Okay, now this could take me away from you for the rest of your life. You visited my grave. You look at my grave now, and I'm there, and I fought for that money. That money, I tried to fight for that money, but I died there. Or I was impaired for the rest of my life. Okay, are you proud of me for doing that, for that money that was in my wallet? Are you proud of that? No, okay. And she went, oh, no, that sounds terrible. Okay, I said, well, okay, here's another story with the same thing again, visiting me in hospital, same situation. Now you hear that this guy pulled a knife and he wanted to hurt you. Okay, he wanted to get hold of you and hurt you, or he wanted to hurt me anyway, kill me anyway. Okay, but I fought. I put the biggest fight off in my life. Now you're proud of me. Oh, absolutely. It's exactly so. Well, that's where you're going to decide what is worth fighting for.
Right.
And again, you get a lot of time. You scale this down, for kids, and you go, is it okay? Is it worth, what is it? Is it worth getting expelled for? Is it worth getting detention for? Is it worth getting all this? For what? What's that? That's the balance. What's the work? What's the value in what you're doing here when you actually physically fight this person? And understanding that difference between the types of fight. This is self-defense and this is fighting. They're different things. Fight training can help with your self-defense, but it's not the same thing, because get into a fight, the legal side of it, the school side of it, that's it. You're in there with the person who's fighting. If you've agreed to fight that person after school, that's it. You can't then be, crying home, oh, I've got a bloody nose.
Self-defense, right.
Yes, it's self-defense and stuff like that. Yeah, exactly. No. That's it. You've agreed to that. And a lot of people get coerced. Most of the time, people who get coerced into those fights, they do it because they feel like if I fight,
what's somebody else going to say about it? Yeah,
exactly. Even if I lose, I'll save face, because you get told that story as well. And that's why I really try to eliminate that. Nonsense. No way. Though that's covered by phones, it's going to come back and bite you on that part of it. People are going to see that, and it'll keep coming back. And so no. It's much better to be able to say no and take away as much of that challenge as you can. It's being able to do that. It's easier said than done. We've got to. Sometimes we have a. I think we very much have an inherited trait to need to assert our place in the pecking order, so to speak, to stand up for our, because back in the past, that's what would happen, wouldn't it? You'd have challenge fights within a group, and the winner was the one to the winner the spoils, and
right.
And if you didn't at least show face, then you'll get picked on by everybody else. Growing up with animals, I often see that, with a lot of the primates, not just the primates, but all other mammals as well. Especially group animals. You tend to
the alpha versus the aspiring alpha kind of situation.
Yeah, exactly. So you see that within people. So we kind of have that in us, but we have to change. We have to flip the script, change the story there. We have to be able to say, no, why? You'll probably beat me up. Why do I want to do that? Okay, well, I didn't expect that one. You know what I mean? That kind of thing is, being able to, answer, work, de-escalate, but also understanding yourself, is this worth fighting for? What, at the end of it, what did I gain out of this? And that's so to me, that's when I came to me about setting a moral compass. It took me a long time to decide about that, because a lot of self-protection is judgment calls, isn't it?
Yes.
Sometimes, and it is judgment calls, and it's sometimes you need to speak out. I mean, a lot of the time, we need to speak out about injustice. We need to speak out about things that happen in our community, but sometimes we need to pick our battles as well. It's not okay, you're in a neighborhood and you see some kid goes and chucks a can down, right, litters the area. Maybe it's your little local neighborhood and everybody around here, and then you feel, okay, right, I know who your parents are, pick that can up, we don't in this place. You're doing that somewhere else. That could be like, I was waiting for you to do that. Okay, now you're in trouble.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. Pick your battles. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Again, decide where. And your moral compass needs to be set there, within that situation, it's like going, well, morally, it's the same thing, littering is litter, but the context has changed this. Do you know what I mean? In this is a situation where me speaking to that child in my local area can affect a change. Me speaking to these people here, it just means that I've just fed straight into what they want, to what they want to do. So it's understanding that kind of thing as well, So it's so it's a judgment calls, and again, and a lot of it, and back to me on a judgment call when I came to doing this, and this is the an updated edition of my book. It's the first time it's ever been in print. Previously, it was only an ebook. But I made some very hard decisions I had to make with my updates. I mean, there was some pretty good things I was able to put in. There were fairly easy decisions to make, like writing a chapter about the aftermath and a whole chapter dedicated to reporting. I'd only touched upon it in the book before, whereas now I did that. That's not difficult. There was putting photographs in it. That made sense. They'd never had photographs before. I decided to put photographs in it. Good. That makes it easy, more accessible. Okay, that stuff was good. But then I started to start asking questions about what am I going to address in here? If I'm going to have honest self-protection. So just like as I said to you before about, answering the stranger danger issue and explaining that part of it. But and why I'm against it. But also, even things like, understanding this whole boundary issue and getting that in there whilst not being explicit, making it being being very what's the word, appropriate for the audience that's going to read. It's going to read it. Understanding very simple principles like boundaries and
context.
Context, exactly, and all this kind of thing. That some of that stuff I had to go into a bit more detail on. That was kind of difficult, and then I came to the point about abductions. And that was one of the hardest things. Now, the whole thing about my book here is that I want the parents on side. I wrote this book when parents aren't around. Okay, the whole idea of that is the fact that this is. The word is overused all the time now, but it's the only one that. But empowerment. Okay, so putting a kid in charge, of themselves in that situation. Why? Because when they're in that kind of situation, an into violence situation. That's what they have to be. They've got to take charge of their environment. We call it, I wrote a whole podcast on it called The Way of the Bear, which is about And The Way of the Bear to me is taking mummy away. Someone once described this to me. Actually said that moment when with people and it can be also taking daddy away as well. Let's be honest. Right. You know what I mean?
No, I got you. Don't worry.
Yeah. Exactly. So, okay. So I saw a situation once where we were doing some pressure testing. I did a 1 hour workshop, and I thought I'm going to come in here punk rock style. I'm going to go in and I'm going to shake everything up because what I'm going to do is we're going to go right into a pressure test early on because this is a free workshop people coming along for. And I had my students there and I said, we're going to do a few pressure tests. We're going to do 1 minute of one person trying to grapple, the other person trying to strike, right? And just to get that dynamic, to get the idea of the asymmetry, the asymmetrical violence, so that they know what we're talking about. So when we go to the focus mitts and we start doing the drills afterwards,
is the context
directly from it. I mean, again, this informs some of my teaching. Some of my coaching is an obvious thing to do, and I still do it to this day, is to put sparring and stuff like that at the end of a lesson. I mean, it seems like the logical place to be, and I'm not against it. But but having said that, how many times have you come out of a sparring session or a self-defense pressure test situation and you're like, oh, that didn't work for me, or why can't I do that, or this kind of thing, or how did that person do that, or any number of questions you've got. You've tested yourself to a certain degree, and certain things haven't worked. But now you've got until the next session to resolve that. Why not change that into part of the teaching thing? So sometimes I try to shift some of my sparring and pressure testing closer to the middle. Not the middle, it's still going towards the end, but so that you've got a good period of time before a warm down where you can start informing your drills and your exercises and your training, so people can
in the muscle memory behind.
People can specifically go, look, I couldn't get it. Okay, right, you couldn't get it. We can work on this now. You know what I mean? So it's not going to interrupt the sparring either. So you're not going to get that. You know that guy who always goes, that's really clever. How did you do that? And you just don't want to we know what's going on. You know that trick, that people do. Oh, that's really good.
That one cool thing.
Yeah. Whatever it is, because they're getting caught out, and they're not comfortable sparring. So they keep turning everything into a learning point. You go, okay, let's reserve some time for that. For an honest, if you honestly want to know, we can do that after. So I like to use that to inform it. So that's part of my approach to that. Now, and you talk about uncomfortable things. So taking mummy away, the concept of taking mummy away is like, we did this pressure test at this workshop, and one person that was there, this guy must have teenager, about 16, 17, probably about the same sort of time. I transitioned, and I got the transition from Sakado to Taekwondo. And when I got my wake-up call, which I was 18 years old, but, so roughly off, not that field. The look on his face after that pressure test was like mummy'd been taken away. It was
wow.
You know what I mean? It's that look of like going, because these are all martial artists, bear in mind, because this is a martial arts event. We're all teaching our own things. And once that had happened, and I'm not saying he wasn't in tears, but it's that look of like someone who
I thought I knew, I actually don't.
Yeah. I knew what was going through his head. It was like he had somewhere he'd had a delusion of what he'd been doing.
Right.
It was going to work, and now he got a chance to test it. And now we've got to feel, and especially because those pressure tests are done as a minute. So a minute makes it really
intense. That minute gets real long.
yeah. But it's really intense, isn't it? Because a minute is like, okay, and you've both got two different objectives. One person's objective is to take you down. Your objective is to stay away and to keep striking them. So it's like, and he'd had 2 minutes of that now, playing both roles.
Wow.
And the look on his face was like, I could see it. And when somebody said to me after this, at some period, it wasn't to do with this, but I connected to this event. He said, sometimes you've got to take mummy away. And that to me, guys, say it's the way of the bear, because the bears are known for being fantastic parents, and they're amazing parents. So I always think of, okay, it's just a little thing. I sometimes say, where the meerkats, about being aware, about being aware. So that kind of like, it had that. So that's sort of the taking mummy away. So there are elements in the book that kind of come from that, it's okay. You're going to feel frightened. You're going to feel scared, understanding.
Comfortability in the uncomfortable.
Exactly. Understanding what does fear mean? Fear is a word that we use to describe something that we didn't properly understand. Now we know that everybody feels it. Now we know it's just your body's natural survival signals. We use words like yellow and say and use connections to things about people who want to go to the want to go over your side. It would be going to the bathroom. We'd say go to the toilet or something like that. People having those feelings inside them, right? And we associate that's been associated with cowardice. And now we know it's nothing to do with cowardice. It's to do with a physiological response.
Right.
Yeah. I can see the technical issue there.
Yeah, it waited till the end. It's all right. It's cool.
Yeah, and the other thing that came out in there, of course, was talking about the potential where when it comes to abduction, I've been I taught a lot of anti-abduction stuff with kids. And then I had to start looking, what's the truth behind anti-abduction? Or what's the truth behind statistics on abduction? And then you start realizing the majority of people who abduct children are not only the people the children know, which is, again, is part of the stranger danger, but it's an estranged parent. Do you know what I mean? It's something like that. And you're going, how am I going to put that in a book where I want the parents on side, where I could be doing that? And I'm thinking, well, maybe I won't do that. Maybe I'll go over that. And I go, no, because when someone picks this book, I'm doing a disservice. It's a comprehensive self-protection book. It's a book that should be dealing with real worries that parents are going to have for their kids, or a kid is going to be able to read and understand that. So that's why I put in there, when you're at school and if your parents aren't living together, make sure you know which parent's picking you up.
Right.
Make sure you understand which parent's picking you up. So it's the quickest way to kind of handle that. It's a principle-based thing. But that was my view of that. And that was really uncomfortable for me to whether I was going to put that in or not. But then I said to myself, well, am I going to be honest about this or not? Are you all in with the self-protection? Are you going to be comprehensive in the self-protection teaching? Or are you going to cherry pick all the easy stuff? Do you know what I mean? So
things that are easy and cool to teach rather than what actually works.
Yeah, exactly. So that that was an example of one of the updates that I did that. But yeah, and again, so that really it did test me. There are other elements in there as well, but I hope that what's been produced now is a book that will that addresses self-protection for kids as comprehensive as possible. And because the other element, of course, I put into that is the online threat with self-protection, how much that changes everything. And we find that I try to future-proof it as best as possible. I don't use any names of any brands. I just talk about social media, as a whole. It's not going anywhere fast, and it's a vital element. Cyberbullying, cyber stalking, the fact that people, use phones to record acts of violence and then
the whole
person suffer further. All this kind of stuff. So. but I wasn't going to do a chapter specifically on it. I decided I'm not going to do that. At one point I was going to do it, and I thought, no, that will age it quickly, because the Zoomer generation, the Generation Z that are reading this, and now coming into what I'm hoping is going to be the Generation Alpha, that are going to be able to read my book. To them, digital and online stuff, it's part of their life. It's part and parcel of their everyday life. So to talk about it as a separate section as a book, it shouldn't. So it pops up throughout the different chapters, because obviously it's the world. It's got to reflect the world we live in, and that's a strong element. That certainly does.
And I agree with I do agree. I will say that I mean, personally, I wouldn't mind reading a section like that, just talking about how that can affect. But I can understand exactly how it could feel like, you're, I guess, putting a date stamp on the
It's in there. Don't get me wrong. There's, as you see, there's separate sections that do that, like we talk about. But to a lot of kids now, cyberbullying is another extension of bullying. So I will talk about it as part of bullying. So as in, it's becoming less cyberbullying. It's just bullying. It's just part of what bullying is. It continues because it's part of that medium. So I didn't. As I said, for me, it was just like, well, I'm going to keep mentioning this throughout it anyway. So it's part and parcel. It's part of the life that they read. That was my decision. I mean, I almost wrote a chapter on it, but I do think that could very easily, as you say, date stamp it. You could very much easily make it difficult in that sense. But also, I feel like it might be less relatable to a kid. I feel like a kid
would look at that.
Yeah, exactly. What's going, to them, it's not, say cyber stalking and cyberbullying and everything like that. They're just, it's cyber is just part and parcel of their world.
And I again, I want to thank you, honestly, with just speaking about the book overall. I want to thank you for just that having that conversation, I guess, with the parent, the lucky parent who would be reading this book, because I feel that this is a conversation that definitely does need to be had. As a new parent myself, I even found myself coming into the aspect of being afraid as to how I'm going to teach this little guy, understanding, that self-protection, self-defense, how am I going to do that without scaring him? So me being able to, as a new parent, just the book, I feel, is very helpful in starting that conversation and informing that conversation as well. But before we wrap up today, I did want to give you a chance, because I know you said you wanted to talk briefly about Sanda, and I know I did mention in our correspondence that I would leave time for if you had any questions that you wanted to ask about myself or anything. You can feel free to as well.
Oh, lovely, thank you. Okay. So why Sanda to begin with?
Well, I would say that Sanda actually found me. I didn't really find Sanda. My martial arts background stems from Hungar Kung Fu originally. I started Hungar when I was 8, and then I stopped. And then when I was 14, I restarted it when I was going into high school. And as I trained through high school, I did that with a combination of ITF Taekwondo. So when you were talking about Sakaido, I was like, oh, okay, so it kind of sounds like, like Master Lee's over in Buffalo, where it was like very rough and ready, very different from what I had noticed with, it seemed more like kickboxing meets Taekwondo rather than a lot of like other maybe commercialized schools where it kind of seems more so with the sport and the forms and such. So when I got to college, I was looking, I guess, for a way to keep, scratching that martial arts itch, but I wanted to kind of get myself back into Kung Fu to see if there was an aspect of Kung Fu that was similar to what I experienced at that school. And that's when I was introduced to the University of Buffalo Combined Martial Arts Club. And that is one of the classes that they offered was Sanda, which was taught by my co-host, Manny, who's also my coach. He was the one who introduced me to Sanda, and he was also the one that a lot of the methods that we utilized in the way that we trained it was we did train the traditional aspects of Sanda, the catch throws, the punches, the different types of kicks, the knees, how to work in the clinch and utilize the throws. But Manny also threw in a lot of K1 influence, a lot of Kyokushin, a lot of influence from Okinawan karate that kind of brought it together in a way. And then, having Kung Fu and karate having their own kind of like cousin relationship as
Yeah,
far as history
sure.
was concerned. It really helped me to wrap things together. So it's like Sanda for me in a way is like the concept of Jeet Kune Do in a way. It's like it helps me to bring in like contemporize the traditional Kung Fu that I had been like working with for the majority of my time in martial arts, and then also kind of adding in a lot of the cross trained aspects and kind of really trying to use Sanda as a framework as well as its own system, if that makes sense. And that's
Yeah,
also
yeah, no, no. I find that fascinating. So,
mm,
so do you find that Sanda, for want of a better term, does it feel a lot like sort of stand-up MMA in a way? Sort of like, it's got like a shoot boxing element to it.
yeah, I mean, it's like, I mean, I with our classes, like when you look at like Sanda matches, it's like, yes, there's the kind of like the wrestling and
Mm.
catch throw aspect, but there isn't the ground aspect. So stand up MMA, I can definitely say is a good way to describe it in a very broad sense. I would also
Yes.
say that, I mean, again, with the cross training aspect, there's a lot of people who bring in a lot more Shuai Jiao into like the
Yeah.
catch wrestling aspect. And then for some people, for I'll say for UB CMAC, for example, we call it CMAC. For CMAC, for example, we always put in like a judo and BJJ aspect as well. So there were parts of the class where we would bring in somebody from the judo club and they would show us how to incorporate judo style throwing into Sanda. They would also have a member of like the UB like BJJ group to come in and they would show us like okay from an MMA aspect, once you put the person on the ground, this is how you can use, say, Wing Chun in
Yeah.
BJJ in this
Yeah.
aspect or something like that. So it was
Wow.
really
Yeah.
a very
Yeah.
blended way that we practice. It might be different. I would say it's a little bit different from the traditional way that Sanda's practiced, but overall, the framework of it was in Sanda with just a few things that we kind of pulled in there for our own flavor, essentially.
Sure. Did you train any of these sort of the more traditional aspects of Sanda as well?
Um,
I mean, did you? I mean, I've heard some people describe Sanda as more of a rule set than it is a specific thing.
mm,
You know how Muay Thai is
yes.
very much its own thing. Like, well, as
Mhm.
in Southeast Asian kickboxing style, should we say? So,
Right.
Lethwei, Predel Sere, Yin Yao, and
Mhm.
Muay Thai. But Muay Thai is by far the most well known. It's very much Muay Thai specifically. Again, is very much its own thing. So much of it is governed by the rules, the
Right.
culture. There's I mean, again, I have a lot of fun with my clients when they change from boxing to Muay Thai, and we go
Mhm.
and they discover how many things are actually quite different. There's lots of things that you would consider to be the same. But would you find that I've heard some people describe Sandra as more of a rule set rather than or would you say the stuff there that is very much Sanders in that respect?
I would say that Sanda can be described as simply like a rule. So like how when people describe that, like, oh, we're gonna do the K1 rules, we're gonna do like shoot boxing kind of rules. For
Yeah.
me, the way Sanda was introduced to me, it was. I mean, I might get. I don't know. Maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this. I don't know. But for me, it was introduced to me as contemporarily applied kung fu, like taking the
Sure.
traditional aspects and taking the forms and not watering it down, but condensing them into
No.
their most basic frameworks and then utilizing those frameworks into real life physical self-defense
Yes.
situations. So
Okay.
taking
Sure.
like a lot of the sweeping movements that a lot of people see in the kung
Yeah.
fu movies and they think, oh, that's so cool. Taking that, it's like, okay, why is this sweeping motion used? What is this actually supposed to be? What is the basis behind? What is the attribute? And then taking that and then saying, okay, it's used to say guide a punch, for example, just to put it in like a basic whatever, like to guide a punch or whatever. Taking that and then shortening it, and then that's where like the whole understanding like Jeet Kune Do and such, where you're trying to make it more direct, make it more to the point, rather than trying to waste through all of the what people would say the useless movement, though I don't feel it's useless. But taking those movements and bringing it to a more direct path to what it's actually supposed to be used for. And that is what really informed the way that I looked at traditional martial arts as a whole from that point on. Like Sanda is essentially, I thought of it as an evolution. I guess I'll say evolution, an evolution of traditional Kung Fu application and bringing it into the modern day. I mean, it's used with with the police, the military and the police, and then there's the civilian aspect. So it has its contemporary usages once you're able to take the forms and the shapes that you take from those forms and applying it to real life combat, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, again, it's a lot of the stuff. Also, I mean, I find that as I pointed out with my self protection approach, is I find that it's the attributes that you gain from a lot of it is what really helps. But I have found a lot of fascinating aspects with Chinese martial arts. I mean, I trained on and off in them for about 5 years with wushu, and of course, and sometimes wushu, you've kind of got this, the Taolu with the forms, and you've got Sanda is technically the sparring. I mean, I never did the Sanda part of it. We didn't. I mean, I think the Clubb went to introduced it at a later point. But I remember going to a Choi Li Foot club in South Africa when I was visiting my cousins, and they also had a Sanda section as well. So a lot of kung fu schools, a lot of Chinese schools just seem to just offer Sanda as their sparring, don't they, as an extra thing, regardless of what this particular style is.
Right.
Yeah, is that right? I mean, or Sanshu, what they called it. Yeah, there's only
either one. Sanshao, Sanda. We used both terms as well. Yeah. So like, I mean, the name, I mean, it's essentially it translates to free fighting. So we kind of just use them all interchangeably.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
As far as how it was, but my Sanda experience, I will say, definitely was one that really helped to open my eyes. And that's honestly, right now I'm actually going back to my roots essentially in a way, because I'm looking to potentially start classes to try to maybe get my my certification in Jeet Kune Do, to try to go back, I guess, to really take everything that I've been learning via Sanda, Wing Chun, boxing, Okinawan karate, just trying to blend those things into something. Because again, I just had my son a few months ago, and one of the things that I wanted to really do is to create something that I could pass to him, like a legacy through martial arts that I could pass to him. And that's where my understanding of self-protection, self-defense really started getting peaked, because I want to make sure that the things that I'm showing him, he can use at any age. And it's really kind of like, I guess the father in me is really trying to be like, okay, everything that I used, how can I make it simple enough so that he can take it and turn it into something that will continue to work throughout his life.
Yeah, no, I get. So a system, again, is very useful to that. But of course, again, at different age groups, different things become important, don't they? I mean, it's just different, like, because we have different safety lessons at different parts, of our life, where it's more relevant at a certain part of our life, or to a certain type of people or age group than it is to another. I mean, for this reason, one of the things that I've done as part of When Parents Aren't Around is we're devising a special course. So although I do seminars where I teach When Parents Aren't Around, which is based on the book, and they've been great. I've taught them in Denmark, I've taught them over here, and I've taught them online all over the world. We're going to devise an extended bolt-on course for that. So you've got so it's like a badge, a course with badges, so you get a badge. 4 to 7 year olds, and then you've got working up then into it's all the animals again. There's going to be like a meerkat badge for the youngsters, and then the next one will be the rabbit badge, because I think I did a podcast called Way of the Rabbit, where we talk about because there's so much you can learn from rabbits, both from the folklore associated with rabbits and actual rabbits themselves, certainly about evasion and avoiding violence. And then you've got like the bear, which, as I said to you before, that's about accountability, responsibility, empowerment, agency, if you like, is all the bear. And then finally, Chimera, which is obviously the moniker I use. It's obviously the symbol I use, because it symbolizes chaos and mix and all the rest of it. And so mixing things together and the rest of it. And that's kind of like the more adult sort of thing is going to be with the Chimera. But because of that, you see, we talk about a legacy. That's why I've created that, but I've also done it as a way so that it's been the first time I'll ever certify teachers. This is the first time that I've never certified a teacher before, so this will be the first time we're doing it, and I'm doing it. The person who's partnering me to do it is an ex-school teacher and still involved in the educational system. So she's really being immensely helpful on that side of it, helping to structure it and to make it very appropriate for the different ages, and so we can carry on what's being taught in there and make it so that if someone runs a martial arts club, they can offer this if they become a teacher in this as a bolt-on course. It doesn't, because my big concern is this, is that we spend so much of our time like training in a martial art and then keep wondering whether it's going to work for this and whether it's going to work from that. And it's good to have, again, Peter Consterdine, borrowed from him, to have different boxes where you go, this is my sports box, this is my, this is my tradition box, and this is my tiny little, smaller than a matchbox self-defense box. You know what I mean? That's kind of like because it needs to be kept small. That's the art of restriction. So to have that compartmentalization. So if you have a bolt-on kids class, then that's great. That what I'm saying then to somebody is say, look, you don't have to fall over backwards with your system. You don't have to make this, all this stuff applicable straight away to that. You can go down your line there. Not say you can't do self-defense stuff. Do your self-defense stuff, but you're not having to. You've now got yourself a separate course for the kids that you can teach the kids. That's going to cover all their safety aspects. It's going to be updated. It's going to and just like you teach them a first aid course, it's going to be like that. And we're going to have, let's say, the badges representing the animals for that. That's the plan at the moment. Hopefully, it'll be launched this year. Yeah,
that's beautiful. It's what is it? A full composite course, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Not a system. I mean, again, it's a degree of system, I suppose, but it's not it's not an art or anything. But it'd be just like the equivalent as, and we talk about saying, okay, well, you've got to do your first aid badge. So
it's a certification course, essentially, multi-level.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So yeah, for different age groups, this is the important thing. So there'll only be like one test, for each age group, and to which you'll get the badge for that, and it's got trappings of gradings, I suppose, to a certain degree, but the importance here is to be able to again, it's like we have over here a thing called cycling proficiency, where kids get like certificates for being able to ride their bike in the traffic and stuff like that. So it's that kind of thing. So, but the idea is that a club then can offer it. Then you can be someone can be a certified teacher, and they can teach a bolt-on class, and they can either do it as part of their regular classes, or they can offer it as an extra service or something like that. But the point being is that then you've got a compartmentalized thing. I do think that is often the issue with self-protection, is that it needs to be compartmentalized, because otherwise we mess it up. We can't help it. We have to add. We have to make it personalized. It starts becoming things that work for us. But what works for us doesn't necessarily work for somebody else. Right. And then we try to say, well, okay, well, this works for the greatest number of people, and then you just trying to expand upon it, and you're going, no. The whole point of this is it's got to be kept simple. It's got to be kept simple. It's got to be kept direct, and we have to have an emphasis on the soft skills, and that's all got to be kept. So we don't want that necessarily interfering with when we're trying to even learning practical skills that have a traditional route, because you don't want to keep going into that all the time. Okay, well then this is what we do for a modern thing, and this is what we do for that. No. Now you can focus on your art. Now you can, and I'd say that made it easier for me when it came to teaching, when I was able to just be able to say, I love it to be able to go, right, okay, we're doing Muay Thai today. Okay, so we don't have to think about how this is going to work outside the fast food joint, on a Saturday night. We don't have to worry about how this is going to work in a bar, how this is going to work in a home domestic violence situation. All we're worrying about is doing Muay Thai. We're fighting another Nak Muay. We're sparring. We're looking at their strategies. We're going to work like that, So that then becomes separate and becomes nicely compartmentalized. And the self-protection it's got its own thing of it. So, but yeah, so I'm offering that as part of that. And again, it's the first. It's the first time I'll have ever awarded a teaching qualification under my banner. So it's a big thing for me. And again, it's very important for me to make sure it doesn't become anything like a pyramid scheme.
Right.
Yeah. Because I see all that in martial arts. I've been through all that rubbish. So so I don't want that. I want something that is it's theirs. They own it when they do it. Obviously, we might have a thing where we're going, okay, there's a difference between certificated, and then we might have, it's important to update the information like you would do any teaching qualification. It's important you do the CPD. However, that doesn't mean to say that I'm going to be badgering everyone to keep doing an update course. You can keep that, but then there'll be those who do the updates, and there'll be those who just got the certificate, if you know what I mean. So I think, so that way it stops it becoming this obvious drive to be a money-making scheme, to be a pyramid-making scheme. I want it to have validity, so it has to be updated, it has to be modernized. It's important that we keep that integrity. you like, of it. But it's something that, I don't want, people can run the courses themselves. It's something that it's got actual utility. You have all these martial arts instructor mills, don't you, out there all the time? They're everywhere. People just turn up. They turn up at someone's seminar and they get a certificate after, and the certificate and they have to have the certificate, and the certificate has to, and it looks like as if they passed a test, and they just collect, and then sometimes they'll just collect black belts, and not that they'll teach anything from that art. It's just that they've done it. Then they've got it then on their CV. So this is actually something where I feel like if somebody comes along, they can't just go, okay, I got Jamie Clubb teaching certificate. That's it. I've got to see that goes on my thing. That looks really nice. I can have a little Chimera. It's like, no, this has got an actual utility. I've actually now got something where I can teach a direct service in my club. I can just do that, and he's not going to be there trying to control me, and he's not going to be there trying to, I've passed the requisite exam, and yeah, exactly. So there might be, an important thing to have an update, but otherwise, it's your own thing. So again, that's that's the next big thing out of it.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, Jamie, I want to thank you very much for being able, again, being able to spend this time talking about just your book, 2, your journey, and 3, just the overall understanding between self-defense and self-protection, which now I'm going to, this interview gave me a lot to think about as far as how I've been thinking about, understanding self-protection and self-defense. And honestly, I'm going to be rereading the PDF that you actually, if it'd be possible, would you be able to resend that PDF over?
Absolutely, of course, yeah. I'd love to get a physical copy over to you. Shipping's a pain.
It's okay. The PDF works perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's good. No, we can sort something out. It's not a problem. That's great. Thanks so much, David.
Yes,
thanks for having me on the show. It's been wonderful to make the connection. Thoroughly enjoyed this discussion.
And I enjoy being able to speak with you. And thank you very much, Jamie. And to our viewers, if you want, Jamie, would you be able to, plug your information? That way our viewers will be able to find you and, get some more information from you if you need.
The main hub is clubbchimera.com. So that's CLUBBCHIMERA.com, clubbchimera.com. If you go on there or you Google my name, Jamie Clubb with 2 B's, you'll find me. Again, if you go to the website, that's the hub that connects you to podcast, the YouTube channel, and the social media outlets. I've got obviously business pages on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and even TikTok. My daughter dragged me crying and screaming onto that platform.
Oh God,
it's scary out there.
It is. Oh goodness. But again, thank you very much, Jamie, for your time. It's been an honor and a pleasure, and we would love to be able to have you back again if you ever have the time.
I'd love to come back again, and it has been an absolute honor and pleasure for me to be here as well. Thank you for all the good work you're doing, David.
No problem.
And also send my best to Emmanuel and the new arrival.
I will. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, that is our time today. Once again, we want to thank you very much. Please find us at Into the Dojo on Instagram, or make sure to like and subscribe at our YouTube page as well. Thank you again, and have a wonderful day.